What's up?
Hey,
We're here and it's Friday night.
it is, and it's been a week.
I thought whenever we we chatted last Friday, we're like, okay, this is nice, having a break, not a lot
Yeah,
happening. Like, what are we gonna talk about next week?
I know. We were like
and
pitching like universalism. We were like, what if we just like talked about like various like ways that people have processed, their views about like hell if they still hold faith. Like legit. Not there anymore.
Jessica, I'm back. I'm back.
If you're here, drop a
Hmm.
shout out in the chat. Tell us
Oh
what's up.
man,
How's everybody doing this week? How you doing this week, really?
how am I doing? I think I'm doing all right. I was like the past 8 hours or so, I feel like I've had like information overload because these people can't like drop this stuff on a Monday and like give us a week to process
I
it.
know,
Like,
honest to God. Like, no, it's been like they're like Wednesday, and then they're like, let's drop everything.
what's up, Emily? Paul's here for a minute. Hey, Paul.
Awesome.
You chatted and said Emily, but you did it on YouTube and not Facebook.
Okay, well,
Maybe Mr. Juan will see it. Oh no,
no,
there it
it's
goes.
giving me an
It's just
error on
delayed.
Facebook. There
It
we go. I don't
showed
know.
now. Yeah, it's just delayed. Oh man. Yeah, so we had I started keeping a list of like stuff that we could like talk about, and everything that's on the list now has like moved like way down in priority. My monitor went off right here. There we go.
Yeah, for
Turn my
real.
face blue. Because we got like stuff happening in Atlanta that we kind of talked about a little bit last week with the church split and stuff that's happening to Gate City and kind of what all they're navigating. Radiant had some more stuff come out besides James Daly talking about finances. What was it? It's like an accountant or something like that.
Yeah, no,
You get that?
yeah.
The fallout.com is what I wrote down. I think that's
Yeah.
right for their website. We talked about New Evangelicals 2 weeks ago because all that was coming out, and they've had a bunch of response since then. But honestly, I've not kept up with it a whole lot. Art Lucier, is that how you say his name? Lucier?
I think so. Yeah.
Art Lucifer.
Yeah, and that was a moment. So I had talked to Salem like months ago when they first started doing the that page, Survivors of the Harvest.
Yep.
And I know we are going to get to Shelley in 5.
Yeah, let's just run through these things like real quick, just so people know what's happening.
But what was cool was there was a leader that I had reached out to. A lot of people did, and they didn't respond for a long time. And they actually did follow through. And I had like a moment where I was like, someone did the right thing. It was like there is one good person who is what they say they are moment.
And what was that to? What was that in response to?
To Art Lucier stuff. And they were on the Battle for Canada. They were one of the leaders on his like big ministry, and Revival Reformation Alliance. And I was like, hey, you're out there calling out Daystar. What's the deal? And I was not the only person who reached out or anything like that. But this lady who I had zero faith in actually reached out and went through a whole process where she like reached out to him. She reached out to the board. She was like pushing with them behind the scenes. She like listened to survivors who came to her. She like supported Salem and then coordinated like with him to like cover it on her YouTube channel when it went live on Roy's Report. And I was just like, oh, like, and
Wow.
she pulled herself off of, the Reformation Alliance when they wouldn't do a real investigation. And then like outed them and did an hour-long episode.
I totally missed that.
I mean, I can't imagine why you missed it. It came out the same day as everything else, literally Wednesday.
Everything else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody's saying. Andrew, everything all at once, it seems to come in waves.
Yeah.
Hey, Kelly Klinger.
Kelly.
Did you see this one? I pulled this one up while you were talking. Uh-huh. Kermit the Frog's here. Not sure who that is, but hey, Kermit.
Nick!
I almost missed. I'm keeping an eye out for someone, and I've not seen them. We have a birthday girl.
We got Tara Shore. I know.
I don't know where she's at.
Where's Nicole?
Jane here for the Shelley Backlash. Yep. Aaron Strange, what's up? Reporting for snarking duty. Welcome, Jen. Glad you're here. I wonder if they drop their scandals at the same time so that no one person gets good airtime. It's yeah. You all are like the charismatic cult news busters. Aaron, another Aaron lover. I spent the week at my sister's watching my niece's bunnies. I love bunnies, so I've had the VeggieTales songs with all this news. We introduced my girls to VeggieTales, like just the songs, like here recently, because me and my wife like busted out singing them going up the road or something.
Oh my God, Paul's
now-
comment.
Now randomly, I am hearing My Cheeseburger played through the house. Hey, Gene. Okay. Am I ready for this?
I don't know. If we
Most
can put
people's first impression of Shelley
Did
would
you
be
read it first? Jesus.
I didn't read it first. No, I
Trigger
didn't.
warning.
Oh, sorry. Mine
No,
was
you're
listening
good.
to Shelley describe
I
how
mean,
her
this is a fair comment.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Jumping in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that, Brantley and I were talking about this.
Let me hit two more
you
things
hit
real
more?
quick, just to
Okay.
mention them, because I don't know if we'll get to them. Also want to say, like, honor, celebrate all these IHOP KC survivors who went and testified. Since we met last time before is it the House Committee, Senate Committee, whatever, Missouri Governmental Committee, and the bill passed committee, but we don't know if it's going to pass into Missouri law, and that's around like NDAs and child abuse and what was the other thing? Somebody help me out.
The statute of limitations?
Yes. And then there's the Brian Kim and Corey thing, which we may end up getting into.
Yeah, because I know that's a huge thing. Like,
yeah,
for a lot of people here.
Well, let's brief everybody for how we're going to have. Welcome to Open Spaces first. If this is your first time joining us, I'm sorry. I don't know how to prep you for this. Open Spaces. This is just a place, a big table where we come and have conversations. Anyone's welcome. We just ask that you are kind to one another, that you listen to each other with empathy, and that we share primarily from our experiences. We don't want this to be a place of debate or a place like argue and, whatever. Like, there's places for that, and we have fun with that sometimes, but we want to hear more about experiences and have places of open sharing. You can interact, obviously, through the comments, like we're pulling them up here. And here in a minute, we'll drop a link that people can jump in to the conversation. We'll probably wait a couple minutes before we do it because we got a handful of people that joined us on the front end tonight. Familiar faces, one new face. And do you want to frame out the conversation with the Shelley stuff?
Yeah, and I want to say this too. So if you haven't joined us before, there are a lot of different types of folks here. There's Christians, there's atheists, there's going to be people who are angry. There's going to be people who are in, they're in their angry era. There's going to be people who are in their reclamation era, and the goal is not the goal is just to hear each other and leave space for each other. And we really strongly believe that we need each other's wisdom. And that we can kind of grow and validate each other.
Yep.
So you're going to hear a lot of different points of view, and that's okay. You just get to be exactly who you are. So you don't need to filter who you are. Just be kind. Yes. That said, Shelley dropped a podcast with Julie Roys this week, talking about her experience. What was the title?
The title was Mike Bickle groomed me so he could abuse my friends. Something like that.
Yeah. So first, we will say right off the bat, I absolutely believe that. I think that's really consistent with, what we know of Mike Bickle. And all of the above here. Absolutely. And so we absolutely validate that abuse and the pain of that, all of it.
Because every story matters. Thank you, Sarah.
Story matters.
For all the mantras that you've given us over the past 2 years.
Sarah Markman is such a gift. I feel like, all right, I'm going to use a triggering word, but I feel like low-key pastored by her post.
Sure.
I'm like, you know what I mean?
She's always so gentle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think so. At the same time, I think what was really hard for a lot of us was that Shelley did share her story. And at the same time, she shared parts of another story in ways that didn't feel honest, right? And so it put people in a position. She talked a little bit about the Deaton stuff and did not really acknowledge her role in it in a way that felt true to, I think, everyone's experience. And what that did was it felt like it put
We all felt gaslit to hell is what it felt like.
yeah, that's what it felt like. I mean, it put everybody in a position where you felt like you had to defend reality instead of actually being able to engage with her story honestly. And so that's the response that it got. Was if you look at on Twitter and on Facebook, when Julie Royce dropped it, it's just a mix of people being like, who don't know her, being like, oh wow, this is such a great whatever explanation of how grooming works. And then comments like this, which is fair because it just didn't, she did not own anything. And so it's really hard to, I think it's really hard to be put in a position where you're being asked to validate her abuse when she has not validated the pain of that she actually caused. And so we want to make some space to actually validate that pain since it was not done. And so we're going to start when we engage with that story, we're going to start there. And I want to say very strongly, it in no way invalidates the pain that she experienced. We are not invalidating it. But we are going to honor the whole story.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to bring everybody up? I'm going to shut my blinds real quick because my mom just texted me and told me that there is a shooter loose in my neighborhood. I just put up a news article. So I'm going to close my blinds so nobody sees me.
How American. All right, so we got with us tonight, we got, you guys know Wendy. She's finding her arrow right now. She's not dealing with any American problems right now. We got Janelle, who was my BFF co-host during all of this. Well, Brantley was in his vacation era.
Yes, my vacation era.
And then we got Justin Todd. Justin, it's your first time hopping on, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me introduce Justin. Justin is a good. I love Justin with all my heart, and we lived together in Kansas City. Me and Justin had many debates, standing in the kitchen, many times on theological positions that we probably both don't hold anymore, and we have great love for each other. And yeah, that's Justin. He's got a big heart. I love him.
So, with that. I'm just going to say it. I was so pissed because I felt I was mad at Julie because it's not like the Deaton story isn't out there so publicly. I mean, it was the biggest scandal, and scandal is such a horrible word to use, but I mean, that was insanity. And the Rolling Stone covered it, and everybody knew about. I don't even want to pull up the clip of her talking about it, but she was like, she called it grief counseling. It was an interrogation on Shiloh where they were held for 24 hours, and Julie calls it, you were tasked with investigating.
Shelley corrected and called it pastoring. Yeah,
and I'm like, it was neither of those things. It was an exorcism. It was like coercion. It was, and so I had a Twitter fight with Julie. I mean, everybody was having a Twitter fight with Julie, but like just being like, she's like, what do you feel like I got wrong? And I was like, well, what do you think I didn't? She's like, well, that's not what I was covering. Yeah, you know what? This is correct. It was psychological torture that led to a psychotic break.
Yep.
That landed a guy in jail.
Yeah.
2 years without justice.
Yeah.
Even though there was zero evidence, there was no DNA evidence. And I pulled up, I actually looked up some of the case files
Court
and
documents.
stuff. Court docs. Yeah, it wasn't case files, court documents. And, you know, one of them, it was definitely written by the defense attorney, but it really summed it up well. It just talks about he was on camera in the prayer room. You know what, Jen? I don't know. It could have been 1 year and he posted bail. That is very true. I'm not sure. But he was there for a minute. And what killed me is IHOP could have posted bail.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was zero evidence. He was not, all there was his confession. And that was basically the lawyer's argument. It was like, this needs to be thrown out because all there is his confession. So if you're not familiar with this, oh gosh, I didn't give an overview. So Bethany Deaton, there was like a small community called the Community of
Did they
Staff
actually
members.
have a name? I didn't realize.
Yeah, they
that.
called it the community. I don't know. It was in the court docs. They called it the Community amongst themselves. And if I remember correctly, guys, right? Tyler he was an IHOP U student. My husband audited a Greek class that Richard Leontonio taught that Tyler was in.
If you were in a class with him, raise your hand.
Yeah.
I sat next to him in class for 3 years when he was there.
Dude, literally any of you could probably sum this up better than me because I was not in IHOP. I was outside of it. So I met with friends who were, in the thick of it. But
I was a first year student.
You were first year. You want to sum up?
Oh, no.
No.
The only experience was we were given, there was this mass text to all the students telling us to lock down. We weren't allowed to leave our homes, go anywhere, but they didn't tell us what was going on. This was in the evening that this had happened. And then later on, I'm pretty sure it was in our small groups that they explained to us hey, this is what happened, and it was a murder, and this and that, and then they did this huge statement. Mike Bickle got up, and the other ELT got up, and they were we're going to be super transparent with you, and we're cooperating with the police, and we don't want you guys saying anything to anyone, and even had a predetermined statement for us to tell our parents back at home.
Oh, that's so IHOP.
Just very don't give any details or information, everybody's safe. We're not connected to this group at all. This is an outsiders group. And
Nicole,
Can I pause you for a second?
go ahead.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Okay. Are we gonna sing the whole thing, dear Nicole? Yeah, I think I'm
Yeah,
done.
we're good,
I think I'm done. Okay.
Mhm.
Sorry. Continue.
And
we love you, Nicole.
Manny,
All right. In the midst of a super serious thing, we're so sorry. But
Yeah.
also we have cult trauma. Everything's a super serious.
We have to find the
thing.
happy moments where we can.
this is how we cope.
So
Yeah. That was all I knew. And then I just knew a bunch of students that were in his class were extremely upset.
yeah.
We're just this is not the guy that we know. There's no way. So
Micah is not
much-
the guy we knew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you weren't part of IHOP and you're not aware what happened, but Tyler Deaton he had some friends who they all came from the same college, came to IHOP. A lot of them were enrolled in classes. Tyler was for sure on staff. Tara's saying he was introduced in meetings for former pastors that Mike Bickle was part of leading as our secret weapon that was going to teach and train all of the experienced pastors. And so the community that IHOP was saying, it was disconnected community. It was the model that IHOP wanted to replicate, and he was about to be announced as, I'm going to get the term wrong, but he was actually announced as like the community pastor director. And there, I believe someone has evidence of that in, it was typed, already
handout or
printed
something?
in the handouts. Yeah. That they were going to do on FCF. It was literally going to be that week. And so he was gay, closeted, had gone through living waters, I believe. He had just married, or not just married, but he had married
Still
Bethany.
is, as far as I know.
And this is really, really sad, but he had married Bethany, and then pretty much they were living like communally, and his behavior towards her, she was like punished for like making advances to her own husband, forced to sleep separately from him. It was really humiliating. She was like punished in the community. They would like severely punish community members. And so, I mean, really hard, huge trigger warning, guys. So she became suicidal. She was suicidal before it happened. 3 weeks before, she had a hospital stay, where she was voluntarily admitted. She did have an attempt before that. And the timeline is laid out in the court docs, and she's on camera, buying. We should have put a huge trigger warning, but I'm sorry, guys. Part of it's that this is like so woven into the fabric of everyone's experience that I almost don't remember. But we are going to talk about death. We're going to talk about suicide. We're going to talk about massive spiritual abuse. Also, that's kind of open spaces. And a sexual assault. So then what happened was, at that point, I think basically Bethany goes and she leaves a note. She actually left all her passwords for her roommates because they lived communally, and it was her job to they had like communal money, and it was her job to pay the bills.
Yeah,
and so she had all those
resources
passwords
together and redistributed them, and
and there was a lot of like shunning and all of that kind of stuff happened in that community. And
they were super isolated. I don't know if Justin has any insight either, but and some of them may be here. So like, I want to be sensitive because I don't know where people are at and stuff. But like, I remember me and my friends approaching some of them that were community members after class one time, just because we realized they didn't hang out with anybody. And we were just like, hey, like, come hang out with us. Like, we're going to go get cheeseburgers at Burger King or something, or like whatever, or go to the library and do stuff. And like, we never could get them to like come hang out with us. It always struck us so weird. And it was one of those things that we didn't know until hindsight. Like, once I heard the news, because wasn't it like in October, something like that, or the end of September? And once I heard it, like all of a sudden I had all these flashback interactions that I had with all of them. I mean, like Justin said, like I was in classes with Tyler all the time. Remember him going toe to toe with Stephen Venable, and like, kind of had respect for the guy, to be honest, like at that time.
Yeah, it was so they were definitely insular and not integrated as a community. Like they definitely had their own thing happening, but he was absolutely 100% on staff, or I mean, he was literally, I don't know how to say it other than he was very much going to be like the community pastor. I mean, they were part of IHOP. They were always in the prayer room. People knew them.
That's been one of the more frustrating things to me, is to hear like Alan say he wasn't a part, we didn't know these people. And I watched Alan have hours of conversations with this guy in class and after class. Like, anybody that was in IHOP knows, after the class, you had a line of people wanting to talk to the professor or talk to whoever and ask questions or what. And Tyler was always there, and everybody was always mad at him because he was taking 45 minutes to talk to Alan when we wanted to ask a question or whatever. And so that's been one of the, like, I don't know if red flags is the right word for me, but these people that are acting contrite, but then they're just still lying and refusing to admit what they've done and correct the record where they've lied in the past to cover themselves. In my mind, that's the first sign of genuine repentance and genuine, like, hey, acknowledging what I've done. Which, also the Shelley thing is the exact same thing. There's this, we were victims too, which they were, but you're not owning what you did, and you're still lying and pushing this narrative that's not true. That's verifiably false.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to finish, so I want you to continue just in a sec, but I want to finish because there are some people
The
who
full
don't know
story.
this. Yeah. Is that I didn't realize we were going to have to cover all this. And so I didn't think it through. But so Bethany committed suicide. All signs pointed to that. The autopsy has been revised because the case is open, is my understanding of it. But the original autopsy did say suicide.
Was their original autopsy? I was always under the impression that they did not.
No, they did, but then the court doc says that it was originally, that's what it originally was, but then they were going to go back again, and the body had already been released or something.
Gotcha.
And someone can absolutely correct me.
Yeah, no, I remember there was some discourse about
Yeah.
just suicide to murder.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so all that they had was so what happens is she's found and again, trigger warning, guys, but she's found in a van. She's taken some pills. She's on camera at Walgreens buying the pills. There's no other DNA but like hers, and there's like nobody in the community DNA is on that bag but hers. And she is found, and they piece together the timeline. And on the timeline, they do that after the fact. But so when she's found, the IHOP leadership is encouraged to investigate. So this is my understanding of it. They are encouraged by the police to be the ones to engage in the questioning of the community and gather everyone together. So they take everyone to Shiloh, and they are supposed to work kind of with the police. And they're like, these people are in trauma. Maybe they'll open up to you, like, just keep an ear out kind of thing. And I don't know that I would probably change how I'm saying this. I don't know that the police said investigate, but they may have said, ask them questions, try to get them talking. So it's not probably like Julie said, where they were tasked with investigating. I'm not sure. So what immediately starts to happen is Tyler's presence is scrubbed from IHOP. He is scrubbed from websites. His blog is mysteriously scrubbed. Everything is scrubbed. And they start this narrative. This is a, isolated community, whatever. We barely know them, but they're taking them over to Shiloh. And so at Shiloh, they hold them for 24 hours. And this is like literally the day after they find out their friend has died, or the day of. I don't even know. Nobody has slept. Everyone is grieving. Everyone is in shock. They bring in prisoners of hope. And I don't know all of the leaders who were there. I do know Shelley was there. I believe Alan was there for parts of it. Is that?
That's what I've been told.
Yeah. And Prisoners of Hope is a deliverance ministry, and they wear military uniforms, and everything that I've been told.
Do they really? I did not know that.
They do. A lot of them do.
There's another ministry in Alabama that wears military uniforms.
Yeah, not all of them, but I know that some of them do. And, or at least that's what when I was looking them up back then, one of them for sure does, one of the main leader dudes. And they were very much a part of IHOP. Prisoners of Hope was. They later separated. So I don't know if they were in military uniform there, but some of them, yes, they had they made a little a badge that said Prisoners of Hope. Anyway, sorry. So I was like, what is this? So they are very the warring in the spirit crowd. And everyone was told in the group. I am very thrilled, by the way. If anyone wants to correct me, please do, because again, I was not on staff when this happened. So basically, they are to my knowledge, what happened was they are screaming in tongues. They are warring in the spirit. They tell all of these people, you have had a trauma and now you need deliverance. And so they're saying, without saying, like, y'all have demons now. Okay, Brian is saying they don't wear military uniforms. It was like, no, they were there. Bose said he was there for 24 hours. I think, but someone can look up his thing. I think they were held there like all day.
I'm not sure.
We can look it up, but I mean, maybe it was 4 hours, but I don't know. I think because it's a retreat center where you can spend the night. And Tyler wasn't allowed to come, and they start grilling them. So maybe it was 4 hours, and I will, if that's true, I'll stand corrected. I should look up Bose's blog.
I've got his blog here, but it's like an old school blog, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, we can try and look it up. But I mean, if Brian, if you could let us know if you were like around then, that would be really helpful. So anyway, what I had heard and what I had read in the court documents was that they were, scream prayed at in tongues. And they were told, Shelley said she had a prophetic word, right? That about stuff that had happened, that there were sexual assaults, that they had, that had happened. Okay. They had a previous gathering and then went to Shiloh and planned. Perfect. Thank you guys. That makes sense. So maybe what it was is he was talking, it was like a cumulative thing that and they were summing up when I was reading what I read, because one of the blogs is gone now. So
I think it did have to do with the fact that people hadn't slept for a very long amount of time.
Yeah.
So that could be part of what you're remembering is it was another thing, another thing, another thing.
Yes,
and
like thing to thing to thing.
So sleep was, yeah.
That is probably, yeah. So they hadn't slept in 24 hours. See, I'm afraid I'm going to botch this, but I'm summarizing it. But the point is there's like a deliverance style session. And so go out and like cut half of what I said. No, I'm just kidding. So there's a deliverance style session, and it's super intense and it's super traumatizing. And that causes Micah, it's believed that caused Micah to have like a psychotic break, and it elicits like a false confession, and he has like false memories, and he confesses to all this stuff that just is not accurate. There's zero evidence of it. He's like, we drugged Bethany. We used.
He got all the details of the crime scene wrong, and they had video of him in the prayer room at the time that it supposedly happened, and it got deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it was. Someone did turn it over. Yeah, it was someone was able to recover it and clip it. So I don't know where the narrative that it got deleted came from, but I think there was at the very least concern about that. And that was part of it, was there was no acknowledgement that it existed from the leadership who should have been acknowledging that. Like there was no good communication, and I don't know where that breakdown happened. Well, I can imagine. I mean, because Mike's emphasis was like, we have a narrative. So they removed Tyler from the website. Wasn't he on the website too?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember. But they basically, I had heard there, because the Richard Matthews came forward. He was law enforcement at the time, and he said they like scrubbed that from, he watched them like scrub all association with him. So from there, it all starts to unravel, and it becomes apparent that the only evidence they have is this confession from Micah. And so Shelley takes him to the police department, right? And he sleeps and wakes up, recants the entire thing, and is like, that did not happen. And then they have to investigate, though, because they've had a confession. So they investigate, and there is just nothing to corroborate it. Zero things. So then he's in jail for at least a year. Until he gets out on bail. And there's, all on that narrative. And meanwhile, the entire community is being gaslit. And, Shelley then goes into hiding, I believe, at some point. And what everybody has said is that they were told, Lenny and Kevin.
It'd be
Okay.
Kevin Hardy, probably.
What's really hard about this is that the information was so they're police chaplains. That's Lenny LaGuardia and Kevin Hardy, and they were police chaplains.
Which all of them have been, with any ties to IHOP, have been terminated.
Yeah. Well. Oh yeah. The KCBD
That's what was reported.
and
Yeah.
Grandview, they did. Yeah. So if I have some of these details wrong, at any point, I'm happy to be corrected. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two. That is part of what is so frustrating about this, is that while there are inconsistencies in the way that we have heard it, yeah.
That's the witness
Yeah,
protection
that part.
program.
So this is really interesting. This is a really interesting and helpful comment. So Brian here is saying the goal of the meeting was to confront the group with the realization that they were in a cult, which would be shock on top of shock.
Yeah.
And that is so, it's like we're tackling way too many things. And then you're doing that deliverance ministry style.
Mhm.
And can I
Already
So much, and Brian, thank you so much for clarifying these things. This is so helpful.
Mhm.
can I just say
Whoa.
Whoa, the level of
It makes sense, because I feel like there was a heightened sense of Jesus.
oh my gosh.
Were you a human shield there, Jane?
okay. So here's a comment here. We were told
Oof.
Shelley was in witness protection,
Mhm.
but related to Deaton. Now on the podcast, I believe someone
Yes.
correct me.
Did she
said-
talk about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it that she says?
Well, she said that she went away for a portion of time and then she came back briefly and then she chose a new, there was this real interesting phrase she kept using, like a new choice in life or a new way of life when she decided to get married.
And
Yeah.
did she say
And
she was in witness?
Kind of pushed out because Mike knew that she was a truth teller and maybe that her friends were going to start to tell her about the abuse they'd been experiencing. And it was known that she was someone that found information out. So that's kind of why she ended up being kind of pushed out of IHOP, was because of her advocacy for victims.
Oh my God. Like, what kills me is that there is a comment on Facebook by a former IHOP leader. And
A New Beautiful Life. That is what it was.
New Beautiful Life. And he says that at the end, when she says that, he was like, no, she was pushed out because students and staff were calling her out.
Yeah.
And
She was one of the main reasons the Fearless Five did what they did.
Yeah. And can I just add, when she talks about this, talking with Julie, this pastoral care, it was just being pastoral. I did a couple of pastoral papers, but I feel like anyone who has an ounce of common sense would know. And I've also experienced someone have a psychotic break, and it's actually quite scary.
Yeah.
And they do say really strange things. And most people would go, this person is not well right now. We probably need to get them to the hospital, or we need to try and get them to sleep. Like, I actually had to call people and get someone to take someone to the hospital because they weren't in their right mind anymore. So the fact that the logical decision was to take someone to a police station when they're clearly not well, and this is someone who has pastoral experience.
This is the issue that you encounter with fundamentalist spaces that are very much about, this is spiritual warfare, our battles against things unseen.
Yeah.
And so when we encounter mental health episodes, it's interpreted as like, okay, this is a demon, or this is, something going on in the spiritual realm. And so what should clearly be interpreted as a mental health episode, this person has not had sleep. They are traumatized from what has happened within their group, and a friend has died, and you have all of these high-level leaders surrounding you and interrogating you and utilizing these fear-based tactics of spiritual warfare. Of course, someone's going to lose it. And
Yeah.
but coming from the side of like these hyper spiritualized spaces and this mentality of like, okay, we're reaching a breakthrough now, and we're finally getting the truth out, and so it just completely like dissipates any kind of logic
Yeah.
of what's happening.
And I have a really clear memory of Mike talking about how Shelley really went after the truth in the Deaton stuff. Like, I have a real clear memory of him being like, and Shelley, she just kept going for it, and she just kept doing this because she was going to find the truth. And it was like, this really, like, Shelley at one stage was the hero.
Yeah, she was
She's the one.
put on a high pedestal for that.
Yeah. And then suddenly,
Yeah.
things.
Which I think that we've kind of. Oh, sorry, I cut you off, Wendy.
You're good.
I think we've kind of set the stage for everybody. I think as far as like those backstories and stuff, I'm going to drop the link in the chat because I'm sure there's probably like some people chomping at the bit, and there's a lot of comments that we've marked to kind of go through.
Yeah.
So if you guys would like to join us, feel free to join us through the link, and you can hang out for a minute. You can stay all night, whatever you want. You can come chat with us. Justin had to run.
Yeah. You can pop off on however, but I think it's Nicole, that's without going into too much detail, that's a really common method, actually. And taking sleeping pills. And I want everyone to be real sensitive to your own comfort levels right now, because suicide is a really hard topic. It's a really hard topic for me because I've had people in their life. So I'm coming into this monitoring myself. But I want you to monitor yourself tonight while we're talking about this, because it's really heavy, and you can sometimes not realize how triggered you are when talking about it. And that is not in reference to you, Nicole, by the way. I'm just seeing your comment and then realizing I need to give a disclaimer. And I did not think ahead of time about the disclaimers we would need to give tonight, because I think this story has been, I have talked about this story so many times. So I apologize for that, guys, but I think I've talked about this so many times that I jumped straight in. So one thing I want to do is if suicide is a hard topic, I want us to be able to talk about that aspect of it. But I would say let's maybe set a time limit for that aspect so that people can go and come back. And unless we feel like we've kind of like discussed it already.
Yeah, I think
we're it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. So we've hit that one. That's kind of what we did in the past. And so if there are any parts of it that are really tough for you,
you can turn this video off at any time.
Yes, you can. And you can also message me for what those topics are, and I can give you a heads up when we're done with that topic and kind of put some guardrails on it so you're not just cut out from this, if that makes sense. I can't make any promises, but I can do my best, and I'm happy to, because I have those topics. And that is something I do with my friends pretty often. So I dip when I need to dip from a chat. And they know what mine are, and that's normal and okay. So I just want to say that.
Yep.
Do something to steady yourself after, drink some tea,
I'm going to go way back in the comments because we've like literally like 30 minutes or 20 minutes back. But Andy earlier had hopes when the podcast started because Shelly, if years ago, wouldn't have publicly said that her dad was her childhood abuser, and I was surprised she admitted that the weird email clippings were her and the report were hers, the little collage. So I was really hoping for honesty and ownership when it came to the Deaton situation. Disappointed for sure. Also, it was slightly triggering to hear her voice. Yeah, it was just so weird to see her present herself.
Yeah.
In such a way that was foreign. I mean, that could be her authentic self now. I don't know, but I've just never seen her that way. Yeah.
I did her I did 2 of her classes. I did like her mysticism class. I did her How to the Judge class. I was there for the turn era. And
the turn word. Yeah.
The turn word. Yeah. I mean, that was huge at the time. Yeah. And
was it like Jesus walking into a room with lamps or something? Is that what
yeah. And there's the fear of the Lord and the love of God. And I was thinking about it earlier, as we do. I was like, you know what? You could have just given a message on how it's important to love God and fear God without all the drama.
Nobody would have listened if Jesus wouldn't have walked into my room.
That's good biblical basics. Like,
keep
why?
Culties in line.
I'm just like, why does that have to be so? I mean, but I too, Brantley, was like, wow, this is so soft.
Yeah.
And
she didn't look constipated.
So Paul, this one right here. Oh my gosh. Paul's comment. I can't get over ex-leaders calling for justice for sexual assault victims, which is great, but paving over their complicity in sending Micah Miller to jail after breaking Micah Moore. Good grief. But I think so. This one is weird to me because I have heard, Paul, your question is not weird to me, but I mean, I have complicated feelings on that because I have heard that what Alan's hope was, that they wanted like timelines of all of that, and like they wanted that in the investigation, and that they truly thought that would be part of it. And then when it was handed over to Kuhn, and Firefly was going to do it, when it got negotiated out, they didn't actually have, the scope got limited because the cost for an investigation like that would really go into all forms of misconduct and include something like that. Like, they were in shock that Brad Tebbett was not addressed in there because they gave a lot of that information. And I know a lot of you guys can probably attest to this, that the amount of documents that were sent in by some of us, the amount of detail that was given was not even touched. I mean, you hear him talk about it. Wasn't it like, what didn't he say he had like 1,600 pages of documents or something like that?
I think it was way more than that. I think it was
like 4,000?
Tens of thousands, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was an insane, and he didn't have any time to look at them. And the reality is that an investigation of that scale, I had a conversation once with a couple weeks ago with Rachel Den Hollander. She's like a clergy abuse lawyer, and she's working with Kuhn Consulting, and she had asked, reached out for like some 6,000 pages. Thank you, Amy. So she had like kind of been like, hey, I want to hear like, what are the, I want some feedback for how poorly Tikkun did. And so as part of that, she answered some questions about what investigations look like. And she was saying it would have cost for that kind of investigation, it would have been in the millions, like 4 million, like 2 to 4 million, like baseline would have been like 2 for someone like Grace to do it. And if Guidepost had done it, she was like, it would have taken a whole team. There would have been cultural experts. There would have been different types of investigators. And she was like, the expectation that it would have that was no one ever set, like, expectations weren't set correctly. And so everyone was like in complete shock when that report was released, because they actually expected it to at least address some of those things. So I don't know why I'm not answering why it hasn't been addressed since then, but my understanding was that they wanted to have that addressed and actually have that looked into on the report. So I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying that could have, yes, it would have involved a full investigative team. So I'm not excusing it. I'm not answering for them, but I am giving you that piece of context because I have feelings about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying my feelings. I'm giving you that piece of context to do with what you will, as to some of the rationale that I have heard for why it had not been addressed up until that point. There you go. That's all I have.
Had we I can't remember if we read this one here about during one of the meetings afterwards, the guy stood up and said, "Looks like you're trying to distance yourself." Mike laughed while everyone was in trauma and upset about the lies. Said there's chuckling. We are trying to distance ourselves. Reminds me of the video where he chuckles when Jono asks him if IHOP's a cult, and he goes, "Yes." Ha, 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 ha. I mean, no, we're not a cult.
Yeah. That video is wild.
God.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
Kelly talking about in an on-cult world had been blatantly coerced confession. That's what I said. I was
Yeah.
like, if we were in war, it'd been enhanced interrogation techniques. It'd been a war crime, probably.
Yeah. 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 And okay. Like, what's hard is I remember early on in RFI, we were talking about deliverance ministries. And somebody in there was getting I want to say they were getting a degree in psychology. And they were on their way to drive towards that. And they were talking about how the physical things that are taught as, this is evidence of a demon coming out, so throwing up, shaking, the pins and needles,
The voice changes.
yeah, those are trauma responses. And that is what it looks like when someone is being re-traumatized, when their trauma is being brought up and they are being actively re-traumatized. And that for me was so sobering, because I was like, holy shit. Like, so much of, like, so people who go through that deliverance are being re-traumatized through that deliverance, and it's not deliverance. And and not understanding how trauma works, like by not understanding how trauma works, that is what caused so much of the trauma in the first place. In that scenario, you have already traumatized people, and the tools are bad and actually enact harm, like freaking early surgery.
And it does seem like even within the IHOP history, I do feel there was a definite change after, like, the Deaton thing happened. Like,
Trying to clean up their image a whole lot.
yeah, pre IHOP, like 2012 IHOP and post, to me, especially, I mean, I wasn't there anymore. And even people's experiences, and it seems like that's when things got even tighter and actually more controlling.
Yeah.
Well,
They
that
were very go
No?
ahead, sorry.
Oh no,
I was
yeah.
agreeing.
Yeah. And just because when I hear different people's experiences, I was in their kind of more early days, and even chatting with, some of the people who were around when I was, and we're like, oh, we don't remember the prophetic history being used like people 10 years later remember it being used. Like, we don't remember this being such a big thing. We don't remember that being such a big thing. And you kind of really see, the damage control of the whole situation. And actually,
They started to figure out how to make the cult ship float. They'd been
Yeah.
switching out
Yeah.
parts in and out, intimacy, end times, prophetic
Yeah.
history stories, and yeah, I had a weird moment like turning back and like it was around like the 20th anniversary, maybe. I remember I turned it on. At this point, I mean, I'm just kind of checked out on IHOP and stuff, but I remember turning it on just to see what was going on. And I remember it being like so well produced and like cheery and happy and like kind of hypey. If you can,
Yeah.
like I remember people running around like I think they were like throwing stuff into the crowd, like giving stuff away kind of thing. And I was like, maybe they're trying to get their crap together. I don't know. I was like, it was
See,
so
I
odd.
remember the 7th year anniversary.
That was before I got there.
Yeah, and they had a whole thing of people making like doing impersonations of main leaders. Like Matt Candler did his impersonation of
Mhm.
Mike.
We did that
Like,
for 10 year too.
yeah, they did it at the 10-year, but like, and we had like football games, and it was very yeah, light.
That was
And
about Mike too, though. The football game was all about Mike being
yeah,
quarterback.
oh yeah. And then I remember, yeah, then by the next one, we're all pledging to night and day prayer for our whole lives forever in justice, and we're waiting on the rain still, apparently.
Yeah.
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 Anyway.
It's a mess.
Yeah, I know for sure there was a lot of PR management after Bethany, and definitely like there was a whole series on, you know, Mike Bickle preaching about, you know, this is what a cult is, and these are the
Yeah,
reasons why we're not a cult. And then they did a whole series going through all the prophetic history of IHOP, and so like really reinforcing like this is what we are, and this is your purpose in this, and and what
And now
else?
that you've heard this, you're responsible for
you're-
it.
Yeah, and if you turn away from this, then you know you're rejecting God and His blessings. And I mean, it was just like hammered into us for those following years, and then with the discourse about what happened with Bethany, and people calling it out, and you know, people started like posting things on the internet, doing articles and blogs. And so that was when, you know, leadership really like clamped down on like, don't listen to these people, you know, this is an attack of the enemy. And
That's
really
around the time that Blaze had that blog go viral too.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, that was when he was in his hyper grace era then.
The Joy
Mhm.
Boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I rolled around on some living room floors with them. I'm embarrassed to know what kind of pictures. I know of one picture of me at the Awakening that exists of me.
Oh my
laying out on the
gosh.
floor. I'm just scared to know like what's out there. Golly. Did the panel? Do we still feel zealous about Jesus literally returning? No, I don't. That's an easy answer for me.
No.
No.
I was thinking the other day about how I don't think about eternity much.
I don't either anymore, to be honest.
I used to a lot, like even in decision making.
Mhm.
Sometimes very simple decisions were like, how is this going to affect eternity? And like, yeah. And then the idea that, you know, because eternity is so big, this suffering or this difficulty, I can minimize it because in the light of eternity, it's so small. And being like, yeah, I'm not minimizing my suffering anymore. I'm not minimizing pain because in the light of eternity, the eternal weight of glory outweighs it or whatever. I'm like, nah, this is pain. And I think I'm still, yeah, we're eternal beings. But, you know, my sister's really sick right now. And so I'm making decisions based on the right now, and I want to be present with my sister because I don't know how much longer she'll be here. And
Yep.
where eternity is not nearly as important to me as making sure I show up for her in the present while I can. And yeah, I know that's a side note, but it's something I've been thinking about with some of the messaging of this whole eternity. So I know now I'm realizing it robbed me of present joy sometimes.
Yes. The present moment. Mhm.
Yeah, the present moment, because everything was about
The future.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
all about the age to come, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Kelly, I'm just waiting on Julie to interview Stuart and Sliker about how awful MB was and giving them a platform to completely ignore their part in anything at 6. Kelly was awful. Julie Roy has no idea how IHOP worked, how to handle trauma of all types, and the damage she's perpetuating. Her journalism is costing her credibility. Yeah, I agree. Why would she not have consulted any victims before releasing a story about Shelley? It makes me very angry.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah. I think it made us all. I know, of all the people, of like, you know,
and there's
all
somebody
the-
we've not mentioned yet,
yeah.
which is Sarah Sun Kim. Which
Yeah.
I don't know. Was she around much,
Yeah.
Janelle, while you were there?
Very briefly. She left
Okay.
right after I showed up, and it was kind of like our class was kind of like, what? What the hell?
It's not my place to
We
talk
came
about.
here for these, these teachers, and then a whole group left right after we showed up. And, I know particularly Sarah and Shelley, like they were known to be, professed, and Misty too, I believe, known to be professed, like we're not like living the nun life, and
All of it.
taking the vow, and so
Yeah,
I just remember when she showed up, because there was the whole thing that she could have gone to Harvard or something.
I think she did
Instead-
graduate from Harvard. I think.
Yeah, or she could have done some sort of something. She could have done all these amazing things. Instead, she's decided to come to IHOP and
right.
be an institute missionary.
Yeah.
And it's just this whole like,
She
she
just-
could have had a bright future, but she's chosen, like honestly, most people in the room who
Those people were lauded. Like I remember, like there was like
Yeah.
Wall Street people and like different things like that, and they were just like all that they left to come and be here. And I'm like, yeah, I wonder how you feel about that now. But the thing about Sarah and Shelley, like Corey Russell kind of had his own little band of merry men that followed him. It's kind of like they had their little cult within a cult, right? And I'm
Yeah.
sure like Stuart probably had his own little following of people, right?
did. He had his
And-
night watch in a circle for sure.
And like whenever I was there, Shelley and Sarah had like this is going to be strong words, but they had their claws sunk into this group of girls that they just like jerked around all the time. And it was like, you could tell that they just weren't, now looking back, I don't think I realized it at the
Yes,
time.
so.
I thought it was intensity. I thought it was commitment. I thought it was, you know, like I was kind of envious, to be honest, like looking at them, I'm like, oh, their proximity to these leaders and all the opportunities they get and stuff. And now I look at it in hindsight, I'm like, holy shit, like they were in hell during that time. That's their stories to tell, but it's just, it's
And I
crazy.
think that's
It's Brian
it's-
Kim's sister, Nicole Ann.
It's the proximity to power factor. The closer you get,
It's
the
like the
more
greater the anointing, and
yeah. And
How we treated Jesus too.
yeah, well, so that's
Sorry.
so I'm getting back to Shelley because I do follow her on Instagram. And she did this post about, you need to treat your husband like you would treat Jesus, like,
I'm
kind
not
of-
doing that shit.
all your
I love
out, like you're
Do you pour out
showing
your
your love
alabaster
to
box
Jesus,
for each
like,
piece?
yeah, and
I mean,
you're
you can treat me like
yeah,
that.
like
That's down.
I actually don't get triggered by a whole lot of stuff, but that for me was just like, really, like that's really what you're still doing. It's still so like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing my love for Jesus by pouring myself out for my husband, which I'm all about. Like, serve your spouse, go for it, serve them. It's nice, but your spouse is not Jesus.
Yep.
They're not. They're just not. They didn't. If you still believe that Jesus died on the cross, that they haven't died for you, they're not your savior. You don't owe them everything. They're not Jesus.
For self-professed egalitarian ministry, it was very patriarchal.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were only egalitarian on paper, and you can tell by how many women held a microphone. Women were allowed to hold a microphone when they were singing and being objects of celibate desire.
Yeah.
Or if Mike handed them the
And they have a
microphone.
word from the Lord, because then it's not really coming from you, it's coming from God.
There it is. Yep. Challenge to see who could be the first to touch the hem of Mike's garment. Oh man.
I remember like during the awakening,
I'm
how
here
he
for
would
Kelly
like,
commentary. We need Kelly back on.
we do.
Kelly,
remember,
where
like-
are you? Why aren't you jumping on right now?
I remember during the awakening, he would walk out to his little chair at the back of the stage, and he would like
Oh
make
my
his little
God.
appearances,
What
and then
was
he would like just like walk back out, kind of thing, and like you never knew what was going on with him. Like, was he okay with everything? Did he hate it? Like, did he? And I've heard that there was like conflict around it all, but
Oh,
What year was
I
he
heard it
when
got
you-
shot down, and I heard it got shut down intentionally. Like the awakening is what I've heard. But
yes.
Well,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
surprised because Mike couldn't, there was no place for him, you know? Like he
Mm.
wasn't the star of the show, so he can't keep that going for too long.
Jane is making a really great point. Does she get bingo because she worked
Okay.
for Shelley and Saracen Kim, ended up traumatized, referred to
Oh my God.
and deliverance center due to her trauma symptoms.
Did she also
Yeah,
do?
you do get bingo. I
did
think
she
we
also
need a
do
bingo
something?
card for like which
Yes.
IHOP traumas did you have, and like what
Yeah.
prophecies did you
yeah.
get? Like, were you a David? Were you an Esther? Like, which prophecies? Which traumas? Which
A Mary.
spirit were you traumatized by?
Yeah.
I think
Now
we
we're
all
at
need
the-
free brain scans.
Oh
I think
yeah,
that's
you
what
get
we
the
need to see
survival vest. That
impact.
is what you get. You know what? It's like a Girl Scout. I
That's
want a
the
Girl
shirt.
Scout vest. You know, and it's just like which survival.
You get to
Oh
go
my-
to the
We'll do pizza.
level golden in the age to come. Let's go to the gold level. For a little bit more, you can get to emerald levels, but like MLM
Is that a
marketing.
Main Street
yeah.
Rondo?
Gotta catch them all.
I don't remember the Gold Dust group.
Dude, I don't remember the gold. This
So
is new to me.
y'all ready for a funny confession? I don't know if I've told this story. During the awakening, I was like super jazzed and like so spiritual and shit. And I would have
Did not
gold
want to do
dust appear on my hands every night, and I was like, and it happened for like 2 months straight. I was just like, oh my gosh, and
Was
even
it
when I
like-
went home for Christmas break. Don't beat my punchline, Wendy. You're still on the punchline. I went home for Christmas break, but then I realized it was the gold leafing on my Bible that was coming off of my hands and causing glitter on my hands. I probably
You know
need
what
to-
I was
God, I didn't realize. Oh, that
Okay,
makes
so I have,
Makeup, with your makeup.
yeah.
You have
I have a
sparkling makeup.
similar story.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
It was like the Jergens like shimmer lotion.
I kind of want to go rub my hands on a Bible on my bookshelf just to see if I can get gold dust on the light. I'm going to. I'll be back.
Go do it and come back. Bring that gold dust back here.
Yeah.
What guys remind me? What year was the awakening? Because I was not present for it.
2009.
Okay,
It
that's
started
what I thought.
2009 into 2010.
Okay, yeah.
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 It was during that time period.
Yeah.
Oh, so
But-
going back to
Yeah.
like stopping the awakening, I remember specifically my class showing up in 2011, and our class was motivated to like bring the second awakening. And so I specifically remember, things would start popping off in class, right? And the leadership would just be constantly trying to rein us back in, being like, oh, this is not the time. Like, it's supposed to come in waves, and right now, the wave is pulled back, and so the time is to dig deep into prayer, and we're not gonna like try to force this to happen, or whatever the heck language they're using. And I remember my class being frustrated because they're like, this is happening and you keep shutting it down. Like, what's going on? And I just thought it was interesting that kept happening. And at the time I interpreted as like, oh, they're so wise. Like they're not trying to, get this to happen, and they're trying to be responsible or whatever, humble. But now it's starting to make sense of like, oh, if they had intentionally like shut it down the first time, and then we were trying to bring it back, and then they're shutting it down again because it wasn't in like their own best interest for that time. I really wonder.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Me and Bo
Emily's-
Perkins tried to bring back another wave single-handedly. We hijacked all the interns and tried to have a little
I
party.
would say, from my experience, Stuart was honestly not a huge fan.
Hmm.
I obviously can't speak for him, but he was certainly not someone who was like, he was not one of the leaders that was like, yeah, like we sometimes had stuff happen in the night watch. Some of the time I didn't really participate myself. It wasn't really my thing, but I see Emily have a comment. We had a lot of most of the Fire in the Night internship meetings where all the core leaders going, stop making our interns go to the Awakening, because they're all exhausted. Because they would still have to do the 6 hours. They were having to go to the Awakening from like 7 to 12 or 11:30 or something, and then have to go over to the prayer room. It was ridiculous. And then we it was just so annoying. That sounds very unspiritual, but I just found it very
So
no anything.
I want to check in with everybody really quick, because so you saw me go off screen. That was because I didn't realize I was going to have to describe it, and then triggered myself. And it was fine. But I went and grabbed some tea and a hug, and did what I need to do. Took a minute, and I just want to invite everyone super gently to check in with yourself, see how you're doing, and pay attention to what your level's at. Because what used to happen to me is I would not realize the physical signs of where I was at, where like my shoulders were really tight, or I was starting to feel like all pinpricky on my skin, or just agitated, right? And then I would get past my threshold. And so I am just putting that out there as someone who deals with it pretty regularly. Check in with yourself, see how you're feeling. And I also want to check in and see where people, we've kind of jumped into the Awakening, and there was a lot of different subjects. Do we feel like we're done?
I think we
Shelley?
We can.
Are we over Shelley?
I've been over Shelley. I mean,
Well,
Yeah. I think
I think, I mean, we can go into the grooming, but I think we mostly wanted to hold space for the parts of the story that weren't acknowledged, because I feel like the grooming aspect, it's true, it's been platformed, and that truth is out there, and
it's hard because like this is the pain point, is like I wonder at times if the majority of the leaders at IHOP were victims of some sort.
yeah.
But the problem is whenever the multiplication happens. Like it's
Mhm.
not like Mike and others who ever had these direct impacts on these handfuls of individuals. And then that in turn ended up being Stuart, Shelley, Dave, doing very harmful things to rooms full of IHOP U students.
Yeah.
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 And so it wasn't
Young
just,
people specifically.
what's that? Say it again.
Young people specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, young people at a really vulnerable time of their lives when they're working through their identity and their purpose and who they are and trying to define themselves. And now they're getting told all the things we were told.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of them completely separated from their families, their communities, support systems. You know,
Yeah.
we have international students, very vulnerable people.
Yeah.
I just want to.
Andy wants us to talk
I
again.
really actually.
I didn't pull it up last time because I
This is
didn't
just
know.
IHOP in a drawer is what Andy just dropped.
Everybody
is-
was carrying guns at IHOP when I was there.
But like, this is the
Security
literally IHOP as a place in one drawer. That was that filing cabinet. You had just there in a drawer above the drawer where Mike
Welcome to
Nichol,
America, Wendy.
candy, and dollars for children. Ah,
Oh,
I'm just so much.
Can we talk about my favorite part of Shelley's interview?
Yeah, sure.
I had no idea that Shelley was the founder of the Harp and Bowl model.
Yes, that was my favorite
I've never
part.
heard it before.
I hope people sense my sarcasm there.
Oh,
I know. I was like, that was the first thing I
know.
think I wrote to this. I'm like, oh, Yeah.
man.
She like told some kind of big story about how it was her and Mike on stage and how she had sang a sucky song and Mike didn't like it because nobody knew it. And so people started praying and she started singing spontaneously and she put it all on her
As
jazz
though that had
background
never
and-
been done at any charismatic meeting.
Never. Morning
Yeah.
Star, you know,
Oh,
Joanne
man.
McFadder.
never
She
sung
never.
spontaneously before.
Julie
but
Meyer
Shelley
had never
with her
done it.
jazz background.
Yeah.
He led the way.
Dave Ruiz, what the guy. You know.
It was a strip mall in Grandview. A gun should have been provided to every intern. Like when you go, did you ever just go on walks and then just get like really nervous? 'Cause I did. Like I was,
No,
yeah,
I didn't. And
no,
I
well, yeah,
think
you're not
that
from America.
it was probably actually so one of my favorite things to do on the night watch on my night off was to go for walks at night, like especially when it was snowing. And I have to try and convince one of my guy friends to like come with me, just to stay, just because I was trying to be smart, whatever. And now I'm kind of realizing that they were probably like freaking out the whole time, like because I
Like, I
didn't.
walked around, but
But
Not
probably
at
not
night.
3 a.m. in the morning.
no. Then that was when things go down.
Yeah,
Um,
so, for me that was when it was peaceful and quiet and nice.
Well, also
then
you
so-
think about like the students that had like night prayer room times, right? And not very few of us actually had vehicles. A lot of us were walking back to their homes after dark.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
My wrong comments up. I didn't see that people were saying stuff. Lord.
I think
Um,
all right, I want to acknowledge this real briefly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I did not enjoy that. It's just not cool to speculate. I did not enjoy that. And I did not enjoy that from Julie. And Julie and I have had words about this before where I'm like, absolutely not. Like even her handling, I'm not saying anything about Misty. I'm saying the handling of that story, even Misty's story, was bizarre, and it felt like a TMZ article compared to how Mike's stuff was handled. It just felt gross.
Yep.
And she felt gleeful about exposing that And I did not like it because I was like, here's the thing, like, you're doing this in front of all these people who have no context for this woman. They don't know if she's been abusive. They don't know any of that. All they're seeing is you exposing someone who was like, I mean,
I'm
I
not
don't
going to play the clip, but this was the facial expression.
it was just a little much. There was like a smug, I don't know. I'm mad
Yeah.
at Julie this week, period. And
Well,
she's never
and
gonna watch this. So
also that Shelley chose to say her name and put up those photos and do different things. Like that didn't need to, like,
yeah.
adding that name or those photos in did nothing to add to the story. Like that information didn't need to go in order for Shelley to be able to talk about her own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was so unnecessary.
Yeah.
And
It's just not handling other people's
if
stories
my
and trauma with
friend,
dignity.
if my friend did that to me, I would not consider them my friend. To say, "Oh, I love these girls," and then to do something like that, that's bullshit.
It was
You know,
pure exploitation. And that was the part that upset me the most. It just like putting up these spreads of group pictures of these women and then referring to them as, these specific women were definitely, assaulted by Mike Bickle, definitely utilized by him. And I'm just like, whoa, like
Yeah, it was the
photos should have
insensitivity of,
been-
I think we know, with
should
a
have
smirk.
protected.
Yeah,
That sums it up.
yeah. No,
I mean, that started that whole debacle at the beginning, right? When, all these like, I was not victimized by my people, like I'm not Jane Doe. And it was just like this huge mess, right? And you're essentially like starting it all over again. Just with these photos alone, I mean, that's such a huge statement to make. Like
what it says to me is they are not safe people.
right.
And so I was talking with man, this is gonna be a loaded statement, but I was talking with Tara Shore earlier today. And she said something that was really helpful to me because she like distilled something. But she was like, I'm gonna totally botch it. But she basically was like, we were talking about like, how do you tell when somebody has changed? And like, how do you handle that when suddenly they're out there like being the hero for spiritual abuse, that kind of thing, and they're casting them, but you've had a different experience of them. And she was like, I had to make it simple for myself. Evil people are able to pretend to be good, but good people won't pretend to be evil. So when a person, a person can present a really good front, they can mimic being good, but they're not going to pull shit on you. And they're going to own. That was the other thing she was talking about. She was saying, in my experience, people who have integrated, this is not a direct quote, so this is Susan botching a quote that was really good. But she was talking about people who have integrated like what abuse is and what being safe is, tend to show up as a whole person, not as a curated person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was part of what I saw in Shelley's interview,
Yeah.
was she wasn't showing up as a messy person.
Yeah.
She was showing up as a curated version of herself. Yeah, like apologizing 100%, just owning it, and sitting with the fact that people are going to be mad at you without like that to me would say so much, just being like, I fucked up so badly and I hope people can forgive me for that. And this interview is going to be hard for people. It's because I hurt people. And
Yeah.
I want to acknowledge that. And I just want to say, it's okay. If I hurt you, I'm so sorry. And you do not have to love this interview. That would have been like,
That's
I
simple.
get why this is hard. I would have been like, shit.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's not that hard to say I'm sorry. Like, it's actually not.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not. It's not. It's not hard.
But you have to
to-
deal with your shame.
You know?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
didn't
You
even need it to be genuine. We just needed her to say it.
Yeah. I feel like people who
just not
don't.
just this narrative of like that it's, you know, you're the victim or you're the hero. And that was the hard
Yeah.
thing. And in that story was she was the victim, and then she was a hero, and then she was a victim, and then she was a hero. And those are the only two roles that I think, I don't know. I don't know her personally, but those seem to be, if you're telling a story, that was her story.
So I think this even happens like when like I've been watching all this for a while, and obviously we all have, but like I've been observing specifically that part of it.
No spoilers, Susan. Are you ahead of us?
We've all been I've been watching that IHOP debacle play out for the last 2 years, unlike the rest of you. And no, but like I've been watching like this, I've been paying attention to this thing, trying to figure out like, how do I feel about it? What is it that I'm looking at? And I feel like, oh, how do I word this so without getting myself into so much trouble? So I've watched.
Safe space, Susan. Okay.
Oh, it's sure, yeah. And then until someone gets mad, until someone gets mad at me, but I'm the only one who can get in trouble here.
But just a troublemaker.
Yeah, well,
My
no,
camera's being weird. I'll be right back.
so I think what I'm trying to get at is that it's really hard and messy. Like I think Wendy, was it you who was saying, or somebody was saying, either you or Brantley, man, it could have been any of you, but we were talking about how like all of the leaders were probably abused in some way. It was Brantley. All of the leaders probably experienced abuse. And I think it's stupid to not validate that. And so you see, like that's true. They probably all were groomed or abused in some way, and like spiritually abused, and probably did not really know. It was like a dysfunctional family dynamic. And a lot of us came from dysfunctional family dynamics too. So I imagine they probably did too, because Bickle was a dysfunctional family dynamic, and you're drawn to what's familiar.
Yeah.
And when I'm thinking through it, I'm thinking through like, I've almost lost my train of thought on this, but my point is that in the same way that I see people, these leaders want to, and I'm using that loosely, but like Shelley want to, be like, I'm only victim, only hero. And I'm never in this other category of I enabled, I participated in abuse. I was an abuser at some point. Right. And then I see these other responses, and they're the ones that I would see as the ones that end up being most harmful in the survivor community, where they are like, you are 100% evil and there is no good you can do. You are an abuser. And so then if you sided with, if you supported, if you cared, if you liked Ellen Hood's apology, I don't care if you did or didn't. But my point was, there wasn't room for people to see any good in the AG for some people. And so it's like these two opposing.
Yeah.
I don't think either one is healthy. And I'm also not excusing any of it, but I'm saying, yeah, black and white thinking to support harmful narratives. Yeah. Binary. Thank you.
These people,
everybody's like, save Susan from herself. She's describing something so simple, and it's actually just binary thinking. And it's just like, Jesus.
But the biggest thing is that
it's like a revelation for me. I'm like, it's crazy, but there's like
the black and white thinking is such a huge part of IHOP and of these other communities.
Us versus them.
it's right or wrong. It is. It's us and them. And
Mhm.
so the
Yeah.
ability to hold space, holding an open space.
It's actually an advertisement for open spaces that Wendy's
Yeah,
doing.
they're right. For yes, that two things that can seem juxtaposed can be true at the same time, which is someone can have trauma and abuse and simultaneously also end up abusing others, and that's what makes it so complicated, and that's what makes dynamics really difficult in families, because you have someone who, a spouse or whatever, who is both being abused but also perhaps not protecting their children, and that's a huge dynamic that is really complicated and difficult. And there are some people that will be like, the issue of safety, and that some people, when people weren't safe, and there are people that were in positions to try and keep people safe and they didn't.
Mm.
Mhm.
And there are other people who was, a lot of people who are us plebeians doing whatever they could to try and, protect people,
Yep.
essentially. And
Yep.
then there are other people that didn't, and they could. And I get it's difficult, but all you have to do is go, again, I acknowledge that, I was harmful. I used the prophetic incorrectly. I mean, it's difficult for me to hear Shelley talk about the use of the prophetic and how Mike used the prophetic to manipulate and control. That was hard for me to hear and not be like, well, feel like we've got a bit of a pot and kettle situation going on right now. And I'm sure, and it's possible she learned that from Mike. And so that's, it does get so complicated, because it's like, and it does sound like she's still, I guess this is something I kind of talked about, is it's that whole thing of, for the AG and for the high ups, now that one of their friends, they found out one of their friends was harmed, that's causing them to question everything.
Mhm.
As opposed to all the years of all these different people coming to them and saying, hey, we're harmed. The 5 guys coming up, hey, people are being harmed by you.
Yeah.
That wasn't enough. It
Yeah.
wasn't until someone they knew, they trusted, who was godly.
Yeah.
Well, now this godly person says they're harmed. Now we'll go there, even though we've been told about all these other people. Anyway, I'll stop. That's probably the thing that bothers me the most, is that some people's stories do seem to matter more than others, and that bothers me.
Yeah, that one is really, really hard, because it has felt like there's a request to hold space and hold space and hold space for the people, like to Kelly's point here, for the people who were protagonists. So you own it, but then if you turn around and start a podcast, another ministry, and you carry on as if just being sorry means you're off the hook, the protagonist becomes the victim and then becomes the rescuer. And so it's and that is really hard to swallow. And it's hard too, because the problem is that part of the reason that IHOP was so destroyed was because, like, so quickly, whereas you see other ministries not have that happen, is because leaders stood up. And so it sucks, because a lot of us were calling this out for a very long time, and it did not matter. It did not matter until it was Mike, and it didn't matter until it was leaders. And that has always been a massive, massive pain point. Some victims did matter. Celebrity victims is a word that's been used to describe the way that Julie has handled some of this. And I really, really want to say, just in case, I really want to say this. I am not knocking Deborah and Tammy and TH and Mike's victims. They are brave. We are thankful for you. You are courageous. What we are talking about is different. And it's the pain of not being heard. And those two things coexist at the same time. It doesn't invalidate your pain. So I do want to say that really strongly. I'm saying it's complicated. It's so complicated.
Avril was right.
Avril was right. Comment of the night.
That kind of reminds me of my least favorite part of the podcast, which was whenever she kind of made like the image repair statement. Whenever she was talking about Deborah going to her husband and saying we were wrong about Shelley.
That was image repair for sure, because it was treated as a global.
Yeah.
We were wrong about everything about Shelley, and so you're using Deborah to repair your reputation.
Just because you've suffered harm at the hands of an evil person does not mean every decision you made after that you get a pass on. It doesn't.
And I like this. They need to sit and be learners for a while.
Yeah.
100%.
And it's, I will say, I've heard some of them be very aware about that. And they are all, I don't want to, the AG is not a monolith. And I think that's a pain they're learning, because that's a pain that we have all been treated for years on the outside. It was those bitter, angry ex-IHOPPers over in RFI, the bitter, angry IHOPPers, and they believed that about us. And it is really hard to not treat them as a unit, because they are having to act as a unit, or at least it comes across as.
They had at one stage they had to. It kind of feels like now they're all off doing quite different.
Yeah. And I know some of them, like I heard that I've heard that some of them have stepped down or are actively working on stepping down, but some of it's an income issue. They have to,
It's real.
transition. So, and there's also, I don't know. This is where I feel like I can hold all the feelings at once, where I could be like, shut up, stop talking. And then I'm also like, talk more, say more things, like speak to this. And then I'm also like, you're in trauma, go to therapy. And I'm like, well, you have to pay for therapy, so get a job. And then I'm like, 0 jobs that you could do would pay for therapy.
Yeah.
Like, what? We live in America.
Well, you do.
With our broken economy and terrible job market.
And I think all of them are. Yeah, Kelly's just spitting bars tonight. I'm not negating anyone's apologies. IHOP is still in these people's DNA. That doesn't disappear after an apology. Yeah, you know what it's like?
Yeah.
It's abusive family dynamics. You grow up in an abusive family, and guess what? Oh, we're about to have a moment. Rubio's gonna make some fishing lures.
Hello, lovies.
It all comes
How you
full
doing,
circle.
Joe?
Back from the grave. Here we are for
Good to
such
see
a
you,
time
man.
as this. Amen.
So if you weren't here in the early times of open spaces, which was not very long ago,
Right. Right.
it was only like 1 year ago. It feels like it was like 5.
It literally does. So much has happened.
Dude, yeah.
And
We've relived all of our IHOP years in
We've
1
all
year.
aged 5 years.
Yeah. But Rubio would come on and he would just make fishing lures. Chat with
fishing
us.
lures. No, this is great. No, I kind of challenged myself to do this because I haven't been doing much tie-in, and I know it's something I'm passionate about. So I figured, hey, I should overcome my fear and share my passion with y'all.
I like these responses here. Be poor like we were. We ate better for you expired food. We had a 60-year-old man in my class, and I have you. Where'd those 6 figures go? Like, oh yeah, it's
Just trust in the Lord. Like
I'm
we.
not going to blame people for being mad. I'm not going to blame people for wanting to support their kids, and I'm just. It's all so shitty. I just want to say that.
Yeah, and the thing is that it actually just does take a lot of work to
Mhm.
get healthy after you've experienced trauma.
Yeah.
And it takes time, and you have to be intentional. Like, it doesn't magically happen. You have to, really be willing to face some really difficult things and ask some really difficult questions.
Yeah.
And I think you can even see, even within people who are more vocal, you can almost tell which questions they're just not willing to ask themselves yet. And I think that's where we hold the space and we understand, like, we get it, it's hard, but it's maybe don't let us into your journey. Maybe just go and do that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and come back when maybe, like, I mean, a lot of people here have done the work, but I don't want to learn how to deal with spiritual abuse from anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Like, I
think,
don't.
yeah, I feel like I just relate to that because I like, and part of it is like, I think about like part of me doing my work in general, like both post IHOP and just with my own like family life, like with how I grew up and what was modeled. And I think my parents were doing their best, but they had bad models too. And there was not great access to therapy. There were not a lot of options, and it was expensive as hell. And part of for me has been, I think, to really grow and resolve this stuff. Yeah, you have to deal with your trauma, but within that, you also have to deal with your own propensity for darkness. And if you can't look at that darkness in yourself, not just what you did, but what you like, if you can't imagine how you might have made someone else feel despite your intentions, when they're bringing stuff, then you're not going to be a safe person. Like, if I'm articulating this so badly, but it's like that Jungian thing of like, you have to. I think he calls it like making friends with the darkness, making peace with the darkness within yourself. And it's that idea of actually acknowledging it and learning to be real with the fact that it's there and it's still in you. And until you actually acknowledge that it's still in you, if you don't do that, you're still living in this place of shame. And then what you do when you see darkness in other people is you aren't able to hold the line if it's darkness that looks like yours. So you're not able to call out spiritual abuse in your friends because it's darkness that looks like yours. Or you're going to distance yourself from somebody who's in that place and say, hey, no, I'm not anything like that. And you're going to be lying to yourself. And until you have to be able to do both. And you can only do that if you actually deal with your shame and you deal with, there's some really dark things about me that I need to learn how to manage and deal with. Man, Janelle's got like room service happening.
Yes, I do. Hello.
Oh my gosh, best comment.
Hi.
When I see my darkness, I just Control-Alt-Delete it and start over.
Oh my gosh, you pressed delete. That's what I've been doing wrong. I just need to press delete. I'm trying to make her stay with me, and she does not want to.
Thank you.
It was too good.
That was awesome, Janelle.
This is so true. It's harder and longer when you didn't have the harm of it to give you eyes to see and feel the gravity. Yeah. Because then you're like, why are people still mad? Because it still hurts.
Yeah.
Because the time it took me to clean it up was so much longer than the time it took you to apologize.
Yeah.
Yep.
I still have it on my plate.
Yeah.
I'm
there's
dealing
also-
with my abuse 40 years after it. Not 40, 38 years after it happened. 38 and 35 or whatever it is. I don't know.
This may make our cameras go weird, but I want to see if I can do something
Oh, there
here.
you go.
Wait, oh, it
Oh,
didn't
wow.
work. I thought it'd make Joe bigger. It didn't. I really wanted to see what he was doing, but it didn't work.
Tara's apparently done a lot of work, and she's going to just come here and share all of her wisdom, and I'm a huge fan. Everybody in the comments has been doing their work. I'm like,
I wonder
all these comments.
if I go this way.
That's
If I
two.
go
Ooh.
landscape,
Oh,
does that
okay.
help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
There we go.
Hey, look at that landscape or portrait.
There you go.
We can see better now.
Well,
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, it's hard when your whole identity is founded in it, right? Like your whole life's purpose and this calling, this spiritual reality that you have, and suddenly, you're having to face this reality of like all of that was incredibly faulty and harmful, and you were incredibly complicit in it, and you were an extension of that harm that multiplied upon itself, right? With thousands and thousands of followers that listened to every word that you spoke and everything that you've ever written. And so, like, yeah, that's going to be a tremendous amount of work. And talk about humbling yourself to do that, to face yourself and all the ugly parts of you that you've fully believed was good and true. Yeah.
yeah, and it's when we all have to face the dynamic of the intent and the impact.
Yeah.
A lot of us, I'm sure, hurt people, said things that we would now never say to people, and our intention, was good. Our intention was to help them love Jesus. Our intention was to challenge them to give themselves further, whatever it was. But the impact was negative for people. And going, well, I didn't mean for that to happen, doesn't negate the impact. You have to go, I am sorry that's how it impacted you. And I'm going to try and make sure, I don't do that again. I communicate things differently. I do whatever. But saying I didn't mean to, I didn't mean for it to be taken that way. I didn't mean for my prophetic word to mean that someone left another state to move to Kansas City to then be in debt. I didn't mean for that to happen. Doesn't mean it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just found out that, not to open a can of worms, but just found out that Eddie James is going to a church that I worked at after I left IHOP that's in my hometown very soon.
Wow. And how do you feel about that, Brantley?
Lots of mixed emotions. I won't get into all the details of this, but I was abused as a teenager at youth group, and my abuser went from my church to this church and continued abusing people, and now they're bringing in Eddie James, which is great.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. That's
That's a lot,
heaps.
Brantley.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Love you, man. That's a lot.
Well, I'm okay. I was just like, what a small freaking world, man. All these people are connected, and the grifters keep grifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lies keep lying. Grifters keep grifting.
Sorry,
I'm
put
pull
it
this
back.
comment up, and I have really did produce world-class speakers and storytellers. Yeah, that's what you were drawn in for. And I also want to say this. That's part of why we were all so effective. Because I've heard some other people talk from other like advocacy, like church, you know, who were speaking out, and they were like, you guys were prolific and media savvy, and like they were like the community level response was like nothing any of them had ever seen, and some of them were like professional advocates.
It's because we were
Um,
messengers.
Yeah, we were, and I proud of us for that, for using it for something
Yeah.
that actually mattered.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
so
we're told about justice, and now we do.
yeah. All right, so I want to ask, do you guys want to touch on Brian Kim?
I'm going to be honest. I've not read the article.
Okay. It's short. It doesn't say much.
I know that
Yeah.
Brian Kim has a bunch of spiritual abuse allegations. And
Yeah. Pretty much.
Just
how
pop
does-
up in the chat. Let us know. Like, is that something you guys
Yeah.
really want to touch on? Or are you guys comfortable not touching on that? We can hit it another time. Like, where you guys at?
only if you play the King clip, Susan.
Oh my god, the clip is wild.
Is there a clip? Send it to me on Messenger,
It-
Julie, if there's a
I
clip.
think she already did.
Did
It's in
she?
that, yeah, it's in that
Is
chat.
it in the just the three of us chat, or is it
Yeah.
in the? Oh, hey, look at that. Can I download it?
Jen saying feels early, so we don't know more, and I think that's valid. Like, there's the petition out there. So I've heard some of the behind the scenes stories. Just a Frog sipping on tea. They're saying yeah, they won't talk about it. We don't have to go.
Do we
deep in it, and
do we
can go
need a
back
trigger
around.
warning for this clip? I've not seen it.
No, I don't think so.
Can I play it?
Yeah, you can play it. Play
Okay,
it.
I haven't seen this.
You're just gonna wait before you play it.
Oh,
Pause it real quick. I need you to. I'm gonna private chat you and tell you because we got to pull up one specific photo.
Oh, I know it's in our other chat, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Hold on.
It's very important that these are shown together.
Yes, I'm going to let me load it in real quick. Let's see, present image file. Can I load both of these at the same time? This video may disappear when I do this. No, it didn't. Boom. Look at that. Okay, are we ready?
Hmm.
This is great.
Father! Terrifies me.
Oh, he's being
What's it gonna look
serious.
like 20, 30 years from now. Long live the king. That's what I always say with Mike Bickle. Long live the king, you know. May you be around for a long time because we need you.
Christ on a cross. Gee whiz.
What was that?
The heck was that?
Long live the king.
And the cry voice. I don't know what to do with
I've
that.
never heard that much emotion from Brian Kim before.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't. Spiritual son of Mike Bickle. So
Brian Kim taught me the word futile.
There you go.
Your start.
Another gold star for Brantley.
Oh,
Oh
yeah. So
man.
that's
I think one of the
I was not expecting to hear that voice. That's for sure.
that is it's kind of good remembering all the people, the sons of Mike, the disciples of Mike, whatever you want to call them, who went out to other places and continued to cause more harm.
yeah.
Because there are a lot of people even on open spaces that weren't necessarily at IHOP, but the impact of IHOP and Mike has been really negative in their lives. Like IHOP has harmed people who weren't ever at IHOP.
Mm-hmm.
Through people who were trained at IHOP.
Yes. And all of these ministries and organizations that have literally modeled their ministry after
Yeah.
IHOP's programs
Yeah.
down to the letter. Like it's insane.
Yeah, like the ministry I was involved with in New Zealand, their leadership structure was exactly the same as it was at IHOP.
Mhm.
And the leader there was treated in the same, can't say anything bad about this guy, God's anointed him. Yeah, it was actually, and actually it was worse. My experience after IHOP was worse than it was at IHOP in an organization that came out of IHOP.
Yep.
Yeah.
The smaller environments just have like a different intensity to them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Do y'all want to hear about what I did this week that's semi-related?
Always.
Did you start a cult, Brentley? Without
No.
me?
I was always the person most likely to start a cult in high school.
You were?
Yeah.
That surprises
That's
me.
my life goal.
Because I was also voted person most likely to become a nun. So
Me.
That-
Rude.
Me.
I even wrote on my yearbook, let me know when you start your cult, I'll join it.
that's great.
Anyway, sorry, Brantley.
No, it's great.
So
And
good.
I'm going to be careful how much I share about this because whatever. But I decided on a whim after chatting with some friends, had some stuff like pop into my mind, like memories of stuff that's close to me. And I went to my first charismatic worship gathering in 4 years on Sunday night. I mean, I've worked at a church for like the past 5 years or so, but not currently. But I hadn't been to a charismatic worship gathering in a long time, since like 2021. I went to one, but prior to that, it had been probably another 3-4 years or something like that since I'd been to one. But it was odd, like stepping back in that environment, because I think Susan might articulate something to me about it, was that like you're able to go back into a place that caused harm and like kind of like face that and like reclaim agency and stuff. But what was interesting was like the good that I saw there. Like I started realizing, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I loved this, these places. I told Becca, because I walk, whenever I walk in, they start singing like right away. Like I knew all the songs, knew them all.
Mhm.
I was like, we all sing from the same hymnal, for like lack of a better term. Like it's what we all do. Like we all have this like common shared history together.
Mhm.
And it was in a house where I went, and it was kind of like a if you know, like United Pursuit, like Live at the Banks house kind of style. Like it was like a band in a living room kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone was like contributing to it. Like not just the singers were singing, the drummer started singing at one point, and like it was just like this beautiful like little shared moment. But it was weird. I did it, and I don't know why I did it, but I did. Thought y'all would enjoy that.
Good for you, Brantley. Way to overcome that.
Yeah. I remember
I was
when
only triggered once, only once.
Oh,
When they
when
put
I-
the chair in the middle of the room.
when they what?
When they put the chair in the middle of the room.
Oh no.
And I was like, I'm the new guy. There's a chair in the middle of the room. Oh no. Because there's only like 40 or 50 people there or something. It was real small. But then
Oh.
after they walked out of the room and walked back in, they put communion in the chair. And
Oh.
but the shocker there was
Oh,
it
that's
wasn't
my
grape
favorite
juice.
part.
I wasn't expecting that. It wasn't grape juice.
I just think there is like, so when we went back to, I think it was Diane Lane. No, it wasn't. So a while back, I joined this like spiritual abuse group, and they were talking about that exact thing. They were talking about, it was a psychologist. She was talking about, and that was her specialty. And she was talking about the goal is not to avoid your triggers. And like, obviously you're avoiding harm, but we're talking about associated triggers. And so she was like, whether or not like your goal is, as part of healing, is to learn to like tolerate distress. And I don't know how to say it in a way that's like healthy at all, but it was like almost like it reminded me of exposure therapy, because OCD runs in my family. And talking about in terms of like places you've been, or like music, reteaching your nervous system that you're able to be exposed to that and be safe. And again, not talking about harm, just talking about, So when I went, Brantley, when I went to back to the program at IHOP, like that was like,
Oh, for the protest.
yeah. So that
Wow.
was like, the first time I had been back, and I
Was
think,
that the same day we were there, Susan?
yep,
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah. That
Yeah, that
what
was
a
so
moment of
intense.
courage.
And
That's what happened. It was the first time I was sitting in a chair like that since I'd been at IHOP. Like really, like
yeah,
and I did it. I did the full thing. Like I was there for the moment. Like I didn't know what it was going to look like for Brantley or anything. I sat back in the chair and put my hands out like I would have back at IHOP. I didn't stand up or anything, but I just
Yeah.
closed my eyes. I would sing along and whatever. But
Did it join the rapid fire prayer line?
do what?
The rapid fire prayer line.
Oh,
you didn't do a fire tunnel, did you? At
no,
Acorn?
that didn't.
Oh, okay.
But what was your prayer room experience like? Sorry, I just wanted.
I mean, I was there, so it was different than I think part of it was like I had a purpose, so it was grounding, and I had people with me. Like Joe was there, and like Jolynn was there, and so like there was a sense of like we had a plan for staying grounded, and we had like kind of buddies. Like we weren't like paired off necessarily. Like some of us did pair off. But like I had like a paper in my hand, and I had like tape, and so it helps to have like a mission. But it was, I don't know, I'd love to hear if it was like this for you, but the familiarity was like how familiar it was actually the most disorienting part for me, because it was not hard for me to like, I don't know how to quite describe it, but it was like, it almost made me nervous at a certain point that it didn't set me off more, because I was like,
Yeah.
well, would I be able to, what?
You kind of just slip back into that
Am I
mode.
getting sucked back in?
Yeah. Like there was a
Yeah.
moment where I was like, would I, and I wouldn't have, because first of all, people were very angry that I was there. So
Oh yeah, they were ready for us.
yeah, they cut the feed. They cut the feed
Pre-recorded.
right at transition. Yep. And they threw something pre-recorded on because someone tipped them off.
Yeah, it was weird. I was in my head the whole time for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going in and out of like trying to connect spiritually, whatever the heck that means.
Yeah.
And also like reminding I was coaching myself the whole time. I was like, there's the door. You can leave anytime you want. If somebody comes up to you and tries to pray over you, like the way my personality is, though, if somebody comes up to prophesy over me, I'm probably not going to tell them to stop. I want to see what they're going to say, just to like see how.
I would
ridiculous it is.
totally let someone to see what they would say. I would totally do it.
And that's what was kind of weird. Like the chair was triggering, but at the same time, I'm like, man, this is going to be a good story.
Oh my gosh.
So it was weird. It was weird, but I noticed. I was telling Susan, I noticed a shift that they were singing these like very. This is going to be super triggering, maybe, but they were being very IHOP in that they were like singing to God about God songs, I would say. And then there was like a shift where they started singing stuff that was more like instructionary, and like they were like, the enemy is going to come in like a flood and God raises up a standard. And then all of a sudden it felt icky. Like all of a sudden, like it went from like, welcome Holy Spirit to God raise up a standard. And I'm like, ugh, that don't feel good. Like the other stuff felt okay, but that doesn't feel good. So it was weird.
I was surprised that I decided to go, but like just before everything broke, probably 2 or 3 months before, Dwayne Roberts and like Ryan Kondo came and did a conference thing in Tauranga. And I like Kondo. He's a mate. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go along. And if I think Tuttle, Nathan Tuttle, Brantley. Do you know him?
I do.
Yeah.
I've not heard that name in ages. Curly hair guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's in New Zealand with his wife, and I think they're 2
I
kids
did
now.
not know that. I like Nathan. He probably
Yeah.
remembers me.
Yeah, and anyway, I haven't been in those environments for such a long time, but just hearing Kondo on his guitar, doing his thing.
City, all glory.
Yeah, exactly. With the crack in the voice and the build and the things. And one thing we're desiring, and
Did he sing
Uh,
Right On? I feel like
Yeah,
I
very
hope
good
he's retired
score.
that
That's what I
one.
was thinking.
Yeah, and I and I kind of looked at Tuttle, Nathan Tuttle. I'm like, oh man, it is so familiar.
Yeah.
And especially for me, for the most part, like for me, the prayer room was like my safe place because the only place I felt I belonged when I was. Because most of the time I was like, I just never felt like I belonged much anywhere else. But then it's also like, and now looking back at that time and being like, whoa, like when Dwayne was there, he would have been working through all the stuff.
Yeah.
When he was here,
That's
talking
crazy.
about the one
Like
thing
you would
that
have known. Yeah.
I was like, that is wild.
I do have
But-
to. One of my favorite prayer room memories was hearing Kondo sing this one day, and then he switched up the words because what was it? You love righteousness, hate wicked. Except he sang, "You love wickedness, you hate righteousness," and everybody just kind of just kept going like it was normal.
I mean, let's be honest, there are definitely a few times people pray to send abortion. And
It's true. It's true.
Send abortion and end revival in America. Planet Parenthood drops in. They're like, amen. Oh.
which one's answered?
My gosh. Yeah.
But yeah,
Journey of life is weird, man. It's weird. It's weird that like something that can cause you so much harm can still have meaning.
yeah.
So I was telling somebody today, this is going to be mildly vulnerable for me. When do I not get mildly vulnerable?
I was about to say, like, if this is vulnerable and it's not been before, I think we need to wrap up here.
Okay, this is a weird one for me. Here's why this is a weird one for me, because this involves me re-engaging the idea of the presence of God while currently agnostic. And so I have again, I've put away questions of what's real and what's not. That's not a question that I'm engaging because I don't think it's helpful for me right now. Maybe I'll re-engage it someday. I don't know. But I when I deconstructed, so if you haven't heard me talk about this before, what I chose was I don't know anything anymore. The only thing I feel like I know is what love looks like and what it doesn't. And so I'm going to start there. And I'm going to lean into love, and whatever doesn't feel like it fits into that weird, it's not a thing. So that's how I'm sorting. That's my sorting system. And what does it look like to be loved well? What does it look like to love other people well? So that was mostly for like years, just hard work in myself. Now I've started thinking about, because part of what taught me to love was Christianity in part. It's also, there were some bad parts to that, but I've gotten to the place where I wanted to look at some of the things that I did get that I feel like were gifts. And one of them was that I started thinking about this week was the fact that the thing that has been most healing to me over decades of carrying trauma has been people's presence with me in it. And I had this great conversation with a friend of mine, Alicia, today, and we were talking about when we are experiencing pain or even telling someone how they've hurt us, what matters less to me than the apology or, hey, this is what I'm going to do different. Like, there are the right steps. And then there is someone who's willing to enter into your pain with you and stay present with you in it. And what I want to see, like when someone's apologizing to me or I'm hurting, the thing that's most healing for me, weirdly, is knowing that they hurt when I hurt.
Yeah.
Because if I see that, then I know that they love me. And they're present with me in the pain. I mean, that's what empathy is I hurt when you hurt. And people who are hurt, when they hurt me, because they see the hurt in me, they're connected to me in a level where they're going to change their behavior because it actually hurts them to see me getting hurt by them. And so one of the things that I realized in that was what's really happening is someone's being present with you. And so like when I am rehashing some of my trauma, if someone's really deeply present with me and it's just like, this is hard, and it's to the point where they're able to sit with me in pain, that feeling of being seen in that moment and being connected with, in love, in your pain, that to me reminds me of the feeling I used to have when people would pray for me. And I would have called it the presence of God. And I don't need to parse it out and decide whether or not that was God or not. But I can look at those moments when people were praying for me, when I brought my vulnerability, when I went up front and I brought my vulnerability and I said, hey, this is what I'm in pain over. And they entered into that place with me and prayed for me. The powerful experiences were when they would, like I had a friend who wept when I shared a piece of my pain, and she wept and then she prayed for me. And that is still one of the most tender moments. It was one of the first times I disclosed my abuse as a child, and she wept with me, and we were sitting against like this random cement wall, and then she prayed for me. And what she was doing was she just started affirming how okay it was to hurt, how hurt she was that I hurt, how hurt God was that I was hurting. And it was just presence. And so I realized that presence, like that was where I learned that presence is what's healing, and how to be present for people, because it was modeled for me in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this moment this week where I felt like I was able to reclaim that little piece of who I am and who I became, because it's my history. Christianity is my history, and charismatic Christianity in particular is my history. It was the culture I was raised in to a really immersive degree. And some of the grief in losing it is you don't just lose your community, but you lose the people who speak your language, the language you were raised in, the language that comforted you, held you. Because I felt held when people would pray for me like that. I felt held emotionally. And when I left the church and had to deal with trauma outside of that space, I'm not saying that the way that the church deals with trauma, the charismatic church, especially IHOP, I'm not saying that that's healthy or right. But there was one piece that I experienced positively, and it was that feeling of being held by God and by someone else. And again, I'm saying this as someone who doesn't currently have that kind of faith. So I'm saying this, it's not neutral, but I'm not trying to resave you in any way. I'm saying that is where I learned to be held. And from that, I have tried to become a person who could hold others in their pain. And I value that so deeply. And it just was this moment where I felt like I got to recapture a little piece of what I had lost, because there were years afterwards where this friend of mine, Amber, if you're watching, Amber, hey, a year ago, I was looking through my messages for something, and I found this voice memo from her that she had sent me when I was talking about my pain over my kids and the trauma they had been going through and how hard it was. And she said, as a mother, there are moments when we're holding our children where she was like, where we want so desperately and we need to be held because we're holding them and comforting them, but we actually need someone to hold us. And she was like, I'm what I hope for you is that she's like, I think you are going to start to have that experience of being held. Because I was just talking through my pain, but talking through some of the things that were changing and, whatever. And And I think that was really true, that is, you know, this almost I don't know. I don't even know where to place it yet. But I do think that we need to be held. And when I was outside of the church, outside the charismatic church, I realized I didn't know how to be held that way. Outside of that context, and I didn't have people who knew how to do that for me in ways that weren't attached to prayer. And that sanctuary, that comfort was gone. I remember someone saying in RMI in one of the earlier years, all my comforts are gone. All the things that rocked me and held me uncomforted are gone.
Yeah.
And this year I have experienced that feeling of being held, being loved, like in an emotional sense, where someone's sitting with you in pain. And I've realized that was so much of what was healing. And that's been the same experience I've had with my children, where I had to learn how to hold them through things that were not resolvable, not fixable, because there are things in their lives that are never going to be okay. But they can be held in the midst of that. So that's
I like what you're saying about the comfort, and you know, you find that, you know, I know actually when I went joined staff at IHOP, I just gone out of a spiritually abusive situation, and I actually found a lot of comfort in singing the Psalms, and it was my safe place to go through those things. But then also recognizing that the longer you're at IHOP, the more you're told other things you can find comfort in, a false comfort. And not things that you should be doing or looking to for comfort, because that's a false comfort. Only God is your comfort.
Right. Yeah.
And then you leave IHOP, or you leave the church, or you leave whatever. And now the only way you've known is the right way to be comforted, or the right way to encounter comfort, or take care of your body and take care of your soul. You don't really want to do that anymore, but you've almost forgotten all the other ways you used to comfort yourself. You know, you've forgotten going for walks, or petting a cat, or, you know, all those other comforts that we're told were false comforts. You're like, actually, those are legitimate, human, normal things to want and need to comfort you in times of pain. And needing a hug is super valid. Like, you know, needing the presence of people is super valid. You don't just find comfort just you and God in a prayer room. You can find comfort through people. You can find comfort through, you know, beauty. You know, I had a really intense week with some medical things in my family, and last minute a friend of mine was like, oh, there are 2 tickets left to the ballet. Do you want to go? I was like, yeah. Normally it's like, do you want to go hiking? I go, yeah. But it was ballet, and we went, and I just spent an hour and a half, 2 hours just listening to beautiful music and watching these amazing, athletic, expressive people. And it was beauty was so healing to me. And that's something that, you know, Wendy of 15 years ago would be like, that's a false comfort. And now that's so healing to just, and a lot of it was, I was present and enjoying music and sound and all the stimulus that I'd had during the week. I was able to just sit and be still and present. And I think that's so important, even as we're having these different conversations and finding out what are the things that we find comforting, and how can we show compassion to ourselves. And everyone's different. And if you still find comfort in particular songs or particular voices, then that's amazing. And if you don't, then you can find new songs, and you new expressions, and you can find different styles of music, or, you know, whatever it is. So,
I want to pull up this comment because
there's so many points in the comment section right now.
So this one here, is that kind of connection normal though? I mean, I'm genuinely asking because the relational dynamics of missional community are so intense. I've never had other friendships like that and I do miss it. So this is real and this is something that I have so much grief over. Because normal, I wouldn't say it is hard. So, okay, here's how I've processed it. You guys can chime in, but this is the thing that I've been processing for like a couple months now. And so being a nerd, I looked into, we did an episode about this, right? Like I was so lonely that I looked up research studies on how relationships form and how do close friendships form. And part of it was that like what we did
with short a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, there's a certain number of hours you have to hit.
Yeah.
To reach a level where you achieve a level of like emotional intimacy. There's like levels to it. But where you start sharing personal things, you start opening up. And so they did this study. They threw a bunch of men in a room and they were figuring out how long does it take for men who classically don't connect to form emotional bonds and actually start connecting on a real heart level. And like, how do they become friends and how do they become close friends? And what they found was that it takes a certain number of hours in a condensed amount of time. And so it is like harder to do. However, so I process this a couple ways. So like part of the reason that women typically have more of these friendships is one, we're socialized differently, but two, a larger proportion of women do, end up being like the stay-at-home parent or whatever. And then like all the things we socialize around when you're young, a lot of the times it's not, I don't know, like my girls have like sleepovers and do their nails and crap. You know what I mean? They don't really have that many sleepovers, but you know what I'm saying. And so there's a whole bunch of different aspects, but I think what I'm getting at is that I had to learn, it was like learning a different language in some respects, but I have an easier time doing it with people who have grown up in the charismatic church and just like deconstructed or didn't deconstruct and they're just open.
Yeah.
And because I feel like we've been raised to expect that. I love Tara's comment. I think it is normal and is supposed to be. It's just not common in the US. And because we're independent and self-centered culture that lacks relationships as community. Yeah. And so church was something to center around where we could spend that much time in the same place and then have, you know what I mean? Like that's hard. Yeah, here we go. Emily's got the numbers. 75 is friends, 200 is close friends. Yeah, no, it's the same study, Emily. That's exactly the one. Yeah. And we haven't created space for it. And so it's really hard to find people who have organized their lives in a way where they're making that much room. But it's not impossible. But it is really hard. And that's a brief point. And I genuinely have from time to time considered joining a church as someone who doesn't hold faith. If people were open to it, to be around people who were interested in community.
I think that's what's, it could make or break it, but I see this happening a lot on our college campuses with students that, especially our post-pandemic students, right? That they've grown up in this environment that's very closed off. They don't know how to make friends and cultivate relationships. And they're often targeted by these ministry groups that come onto campus and they're like, hey, come be our friends. They kind of draw them in. They don't tell them that it's a Bible study or anything like that. And so really and a lot of these ministries are very predatory. But that's how they're getting drawn in, is that these are the only groups that are showing up and saying, hey, like, we'll be your friend and we'll talk to you and be super vulnerable. And because everyone else is very like shut down, they're terrified to talk to each other.
No, they've never had it modeled. They've never had vulnerability modeled.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is at church, we had vulnerability, especially charismatic church, we had vulnerability modeled to
Mhm.
us.
Do you know who else does it well?
Oh,
Recovering addicts that have been in AA.
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. You love those folks.
Yeah.
They can have the
100%.
realest conversations in the world with those
Mhm.
people. Same as like here.
Yeah.
So during IHOP, I worked at Starbucks, and my Starbucks family, legit, they will check in on me still.
Oh,
It's not often, but like, I mean, these
it's
people,
been the last 5 years. I'm impressed.
they, and again, we spent that much time together.
Dave Slikers never
We-
checked on me.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Good night, everyone who's popping off. But yeah, like, you know, when we were working like the late shifts and it would slow down a little bit, we got real deep, and those were like those relationships and the way that my boss treated me, who was not a Christian, was part of what helped me recognize the abuse at IHOP. I wasn't judged for being part of it. I wasn't, but those people, I mean, they loved me so damn well. They threw my baby shower, my bridal shower. When I had
Well,
mono
IHOP weren't
checks
good
on
about
me,
that.
yeah, no, they kind of failed me. IHOP did not throw me a baby shower, and I was devastated. And my Starbucks friends did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, here we go. This is part of why AA works. It provides relational support and emotional
Mhm.
regulation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's just it's
Yeah.
reoriented how I live my life a little bit. Some of those realizations. I haven't been able to, like, we just moved. So I don't have any
Mm.
friends locally, like zero. And then the transition was really hard on my kids. Yeah, vulnerability can be weaponized too. And so then we like totally shut down for years.
Mhm.
And it's really hard to find like safe people. Then you find safe people and you open up to them, and then you're terrified after you do that because you're like, yeah. There's another comment. This one. I have
Mhm.
it was a pressure cooker situation, a culture of
Yeah,
confidence,
thanks for
shared
bringing
values.
that comment up, Susan. I love what Jen had to say there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trauma bonding, long hours, and those relationships felt so intense and got deep so quickly. Yeah. And they were, because of that, they were so unstable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
of the things that I had to learn was so Reef did not grow up in any of those environments and was not deeply immersed in IHOP. And he loves so differently than anything that Reef is my husband, for those of you who don't know.
Reef.
Reef. So anyway, it's a much more like slow and steady thing. And I did not know. So I would like try to dive in emotionally, and he would be like, whoa, like chill. And he's a much more like, he's a slow build
Chill,
person.
Daddy.
He's a slow build person, you know, but it's like, it's so much more stable. It's like the steady kind of love, and learning the different expressions doesn't make one wrong. I'm just learning the different expressions, like, was a whole thing. Cause it was just like one model for
Yeah.
how emotional intimacy is done. Cause that's what I feel like about prayer. Like,
For guys, it was the accountability groups. We all told each other our deepest, darkest secrets on day one, and we all installed Covenant Eyes on each other's computers. We all knew it all.
Gosh. Well, the
Covenant.
thing is, one of the pastoral papers I did, was, all about, helping people through things. And basically all the research was like groups,
Mm-hmm.
honest,
Community
open
support.
groups and
Yes.
community is what
Yeah.
helps people to walk through whatever they're walking through. Which was, I was like, everything's actually just saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was,
Paige
it's
Weber. Oh, sorry. I have a slight delay. My bad.
Oh, no, you're good.
I was just going to say Paige Weber gave me a great phrase. She said, we lend each other stability. Like you're lending some of your stability in tough moments, which like touches
borrow
on
your calm.
Yeah, borrow your calm. This like ties into what Tara's saying. She's talking about AA. One important key is everyone's a part. The strong help the weak, but it's not like certain ones are the designated strong ones. It's who's strong at the time for the ones who are weak at the time. And that's
That's
different.
Yeah.
It's so different from the pressure of actually you need to be strong all the time.
Yes.
Or these people are the strong people who have it all together, and you are the weak ones, which always need the strong people's help. And it's so transactional in a really acute
makes
way.
relationships are more vulnerable too when it's like a two-way street rather than like a one-way
Yeah,
street. Like it's different to be like a mentor to somebody and not let somebody close to you, but to like be able to have that equal exchanges.
Yeah. Well, and because a healthy relationship is a seesaw and it's equal. It's not one person has the power and one person doesn't. And if one person has, your vulnerability kind of needs to be matched most of the time, So it's like one person, I mean, usually IHOP.
Paige, I will quote you all day long.
Oh my gosh.
Information.
The problem is that IHOP information was also power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For those, and that's what
whoever knew the end time's the best.
Yeah, this is such a good comment by Nicole. It fights against codependency.
Yeah.
100%. Because the thing at IHOP was weakness was so shame-filled, and it was always like be spiritually strong, be the biggest, faster, be the whatever, and it's not even helpful. That's not healthy at all. Second half.
Oh man.
Talking about some of the things that we have missed, with the community aspect, something that I like really found comfort in was, we did a lot of like prophetic words, especially within, small group settings where it was like, okay, we're going to focus on this one person in our group and everybody's just going to ask the Lord, like, what do you have to say for them? And what comfort do you bring to them? And it was so edifying to be able to like hear from everyone in the group of like, you are seen and we value you and we love you. And here are the good things that we see in you. And that really like brought me through a lot of really dark times. And it's not something that's modeled outside of, a spiritual setting, really. And so, like there's just like certain aspects that are specifically grounded in like spiritual settings. And Wendy, I was really relating to what you had to say too about, the opposite side of that, where it was like, if it wasn't specifically rooted in Jesus, then you couldn't like utilize that being, whatever it was, as a source of comfort. Or even, like doing something for you that you enjoy or gives you peace or relaxation. Like to me, I never traveled to another country without it being a missions trip, you know? Like I never considered
Sure.
going somewhere just for the
I've
sake
never gone on a missions trip. I go by myself so much.
like it was always like I never ever considered going somewhere just to take a
Wow.
vacation and like just to do something for myself. And so it was always in this space of like you know, sacrifice and
Yeah.
suffering and so like if I'm in this angsty space, like this is what I'm called to do and be in the wilderness kind of
Yeah,
thing.
like, the worse I feel, the better I must be doing than my spirit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
go low, you know? Yeah.
No, I get anxiety if I am going to do something for myself still. If I have like I think the longest I've had is like 4 really good feeling days until I start to get nervous. And I'm like, which sounds ridiculous. And some of that is just like I have anxiety. But some of it is I'm realizing this ingrained sense of and you know, I was in my kids were in crisis for a really long time, health crisis. So that's part of it. But this sense of like you're not allowed to rest.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be happy. And if you are, it's probably because you're a selfish, horrible person. And so being able to go, I need rest. I wasn't able to do that until my body basically just was like, hey, do you want to not be able to function? Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
And so it got to the point where my brain was like I just could no longer think to do tasks. I couldn't, whatever. And so I've had to literally just like take it down to what are the basics I need to have for survival, and then what is a kind thing I can do for myself. And be like that has to be enough. And for months it's been me going, hey, that's enough. This is enough for today.
Yes.
And then me crying to my husband and being like, is it enough?
Yeah.
I'm failing the entire family. And he's like,
Yeah.
it is enough. Like,
Yeah.
okay, look at you.
Yeah.
You're not even okay. You just tried to like just go
Yeah.
down and stop. You know, and it feels
Yeah.
so stupid. And it's only been really recently where I don't feel stupid for resting. Like just like I think it's just the feeling of shame.
Yeah.
But feeling dumb for having needs and not
Yeah.
do more.
Yeah. I remember, especially, you know, once I separated and stuff, and so I didn't have much time to myself. And then when I did, at the beginning, I almost had like, I was so fearful that I would use my time unwisely.
Yeah.
And so I found rest stressful because of this weird pressure that I needed to make sure I rested correctly.
Thank you, Power of a Focused Life.
Whatever that meant, I know, right? Like, and so then if I sat and like watched a true crime documentary, that was wrong. But then if I like went and outside, that was wrong. Yeah, it's really dumb having needs. And
Walking your
especially-
dog or taking your cat out,
Yeah.
like what a dumb idea, right?
I know. Like, oh my gosh, I suck. I like cleaned my house because that helps me to feel okay with my life. If my house has to be at a certain level for me to feel okay about the world.
Yeah.
And
Oh my
then-
gosh, and if you have any extra time, it should be utilized in prayer. Like,
yeah, like oh my gosh, I'm not praying. I'm not reading my Bible.
yeah.
I'm rewatching like comfort shows. Like I'm rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or I'm doing whatever.
You
And
gotta love Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
especially, you know, and realizing that I was, you know, in survival mode. And almost starting to come out of survival mode and being like, oh my goodness, there are things that were in the too hard basket for me for a really long time. And I can start to take them out. And that was when like I did start to go away by myself. I did start to do things. And I remember the first time I drove down somewhere by myself, and I did have so much anxiety. But I did it. And once I did it, I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm going to a place, I have no responsibilities, and I actually have time to think, which is scary. And
Yeah.
sometimes you don't like it, but it was also just I know now I'm just but
No, it's good.
it was so like because you didn't I mean when I was at IHOP my Sabbath was 6 hours on a Saturday night.
Right.
5 years. For 5 years
Yeah.
that was my Sabbath, and that was the only time I could call my family because that's when my family was up. So the only time I got to talk to my family was between midnight and 6 on a Saturday.
This
Yeah.
this right here, the urgency and grandiose purpose in absolutely everything made it impossible to just be.
Yup.
Yeah.
Learning to even just
Delusions
accept that like I realized how much I transferred that into every other part of life. And it's
Oh,
really it's hard because we live in a society where you've got like Instagram
It's
standards.
capitalism. Only the strong survive.
Yeah, and just like even like you got to redo your kitchen. Well, now you're gonna feel like shit because your kitchen doesn't look incredible. It doesn't look like the most magical thing. Like whatever. Like that's how I felt. That I did that to our first. I did that in. I'm trying to think of what else I did it in. I did it in parenting. I had to be the best, most perfect parent instead of the okayest parent. I am for sure the okayest parent. I did it in oh my god, I did it in I did it in marriage. In our fights. That was fucking intolerable. I'd be like, this is not a healthy way to do this conflict. And he was like, well, it's how we're doing it. Like, we're here. Like, I don't think we can like rewind. Like, that's not a healthy way to do it either. To be like policing like everything with these impossible standards.
And that's it. It's the standards. And we didn't realize how much those standards got internalized. I did not realize how internalized some of the you're not enough. There's always more. There's always harder, stronger, faster, better, whatever.
Still feel it to this day. So much of it's like in our bones.
Yeah. And then slowly being like, oh, actually,
you know
that
what's
sounds
weird?
lame. I am enough. And now I'm like, yeah, actually, that's really powerful.
Yeah. Not for me, I feel this pressure like as someone who has left the church, right? And is now like I'm in a gay marriage and like doing all these things, right? and I feel this pressure like I have to prove to the church that I'm a good person and I am winning at life, right? And like that to kind of prove to them like, okay, like I'm not this lost sinner that's like fucking up sorry guys everything in life.
Like I thought God loved everybody. What happened to that?
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my god, this self-loathing of like I still carry this pressure of perfectionism even when I'm on the outside. Because I feel this need to like show them that like I'm still worthy. Cool.
And what are we worth? Like, who gets to decide?
Yeah. I tell Becca that all the time, except I always make the joke that Christians lack discernment, is what I say. I'm like, if they really knew me, like, would they let me around? Like, if they really knew me. That same root,
what would
though,
people
is what
think
it
if they found out?
I'm
a Jesus freak.
I have like this intense memory of prayer leading and suddenly being like, and I was intense, knew my Bible pretty well, prayer leading was my thing, and I was there and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is going to realize that I don't know the Bible as much as they all think I do, and I do have these areas that I need to work on, and they're going to all think that I'm a fraud and that I'm not spiritual. I'm not as spiritual as everyone thinks I am, and people have put me on this pedestal, and I'm going to come off it. And the only conclusion I could come to in like this 10-minute song where I'm having like this existential crisis is I should probably quit everything because they're probably going to fire me because I'm not good enough at this thing that I'm actually really
That's
good
a
at.
relatable struggle.
And you know, I'm like I mean, this was like I'm like, how did I spiral from this was a rough set to I'm a fraud. I shouldn't be here anymore. I'm a terrible person. They are going to fire me. And I think of myself as someone with a reasonably good sense of self-worth. But clearly, there are moments and I find and then I guess now I've got a bit more muscle practice of noticing those thoughts and being like, Wendy, who cares?
I feel like I just had
Sorry, really?
No,
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say,
Continue your thought.
if people think I'm an amazing, spiritual, wonderful, kind individual, that's great. If people think I'm a fraud and a judgmental, bitter, whatever person, that makes zero difference to my quality of life.
Yeah.
Unless they're people I care about, that's another conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's yeah.
I just
The
had a
spiral can be real.
I just had a memory unlocked, I think. And I may have had this happen before 6 months ago and I don't remember it. to be TBA. Did you work at Higher Grounds at some point, Wendy?
No, I wasn't allowed to work because I had a religious work visa.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
I can never do.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'm inventing memories in my head.
That's okay.
That's what it is. I'm going to land the plane because we're almost at the 3-hour
Yeah.
mark here.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything they want to say before we take off?
I'm just glad everybody's still here.
Yeah.
We still out here.
We're still.
Yeah. I guess everyone just do the thing that helps you to stay stable and peaceful and calm, and do whatever it is that helps you take care of yourself.
Yep. We're supposed to be back in 2 weeks, but I'm going to be honest with y'all right now, and Susan hasn't heard this from me yet. 2 weeks from now is WrestleMania, and it starts on Friday night. So my attendance is up in the air for 2 weeks from now, but
I'll drag one of these guys up here.
that's our plan. I mean, I can put WrestleMania on the screen right here next to me, but I may be a little distracted.
Brantley, I want you to do what keeps you healthy and stable and regulated right now.
I
And if
literally have
that-
Monday Night Raw on my calendar right now.
Yeah,
so that I
if
don't
that
schedule anything.
is WrestleMania, you got to do that. For me, it's walking and then being angry that I'm walking and feeling better and resenting that very much.
We'll have a WrestleMania watch party 2 weeks from now on Open Spaces. I invite everybody.
I honestly can't think of much else worse.
You said it with such a straight face, too. Oh, God, I hate you all. Okay, everybody, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We will see you back here the next time we are here. Not everybody.
Lord, Brantley.